Hello. Good day, everyone. Hello, Black Links. Get bothered. Hello, everyone. If the game doesn't follow canon, I won't buy it. Well, we'll see about that. I think this game is gonna be a lot easier to make canon, because you don't really need the whole Code timeline stuff. I'm optimistic. I mean, they never said, for Age of Calamity, they never stated that it was gonna be canon. And for this one, they did. I mean, granted, the whole marketing was a bit deceptive. They said it was gonna take place 100 years ago, that's true, but like, as far as canonicity goes, they never went as far as to say, like, it's gonna be a canonical tale. They only said, some of the writers... Oh, this song is so sad. Let me know if the volumes are good. Well, we'll see about the canonicity. You know, there's no point in worrying about that too much right now, because it's still almost a year away. Well, 3/4 of a year away. I prefer to just be positive about it, you know? I think they have more room for canonicity in this one. Obviously, there's going to be some non-canon elements to it. I'm sure Link is going to be a playable character, even though he's not supposed to be in that timeline. Or maybe the hero guy is gonna be in there, the ancient hero, even though that is way before his time as well. Good evening, Dreamweaver. But yeah, I've been outlining like, this is my script currently. I was supposed to upload this week, but it's not gonna happen because I'm already at 6 pages. And I haven't even gotten to the actual imprisoning war. Like, I'm still stuck at the prelude to the imprisoning war. So yeah, that's it's gonna be a tough one, but you know, that's kind of I've gotten used to that at this point. I always end up writing so much more than I intended to. I thought, oh, I'll just do a video about the imprisoning war, like everything we know about it. But then I was like, well, you also need context, right? You need to know what led up to the imprisoning war, like why the imprisoning war happened in the first place. So I ended up writing this whole like 6-page monster just covering all the stuff, like the power dynamic in ancient Hyrule and how, like, the dynamic between Rauru and Ganondorf. So yeah, we're 6 pages in and we haven't even gotten to the actual imprisoning war. Which, you know, I guess that's true to my form, true to form for any Monster Maze video. But yeah, so here I have a rough timeline of the imprisoning war, plus some of the stuff that happened before it. I added screenshots just for context anytime a memory comes into play. And this one is 4 pages long, which... but yeah, this is the rough timeline of it. This is the actual script that goes into more detail, plus the intro and all that stuff. And then we have the 3rd chapter of Masterworks, which has been translated by the wonderful Livix Objects. I don't know how to pronounce this, but yeah, they were kind enough to share this document with everyone who's interested. And they have some pretty good insights and knowledge of the language, of Japanese language. So this is the 3rd chapter of the book. This isn't even the whole book. This is just the history section. So they also added screenshots, which is very helpful. And they translated everything as to the best of their ability. I'm sure there's going to be some stuff that's going to be phrased differently, or some events are going to be a little bit different. Like you have, let's see, you have like the pilgrimage of exorcism, which is when Rauru and Sonia built all these shrines all across Hyrule, the same shrines that we, you know, explore in Tears of the Kingdom. But I'm sure this is going to be phrased differently, because even the imprisoning war is called the sealing war in Japanese. So I'm sure this is going to be quite different in the English version. How did you like the previous Warrior game? I thought they were pretty good. They were fun. Like, obviously the first one is not canon by any means. The second one still left up to debate, I guess. But aside from, like, I've played Dynasty Warriors for the longest time. So I've always been into these games. And for those who are not, I mean, I guess the cutscenes are gonna be the fun part of the of the video, of the game. Like, the cutscenes are gonna be what drives you. But just get through the gameplay sections, or you can just watch compilation on YouTube. Mickey says, "Hey Monster Maze, how you going?" I'm doing good. A little stressed out from all the work I have to do, but you know, you basically get like a whole extra Zelda movie of cutscenes. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think the total length of all the cutscenes combined for Age of Calamity was like 3.5 hours. That's an insane amount of cutscenes. That's like, especially compared to Tears of the Kingdom or even Breath of the Wild. That is a lot of cutscenes to go through, and I'm all for it. Like I said, it's no use talking about canonicy right now. I think it has a chance to be canon because the restrictions are different this time, and there is so much that we are not told in the game. So much content. Zelda YouTube is gonna be so back. Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to just see more, because the one thing that I wanted to learn more about when it came, I even wrote this in my script, I think, in the intro section. Yeah, it's like, but perhaps the most eventful part of Zelda's journey is her bearing witness to the birth of the Demon King and the massive war that ensued shortly after. A war which engulfed the entire kingdom and its people regardless of their affiliation, and culminated in a desperate standoff between herself, Rauru, and the other sages. It's the catalyst for practically everything that happened in the thousands of years that followed. It gave rise to the entity known as Calamity Ganon. It led to the creation of the Guardians, the Divine Beasts, Calamity that wiped out almost the entirety of Hyrule, and almost led to the death of Link himself. However, for an event that carries so much significance, we don't really know that much about the imprisoning... Oh, I see a spelling error. The imprisoning war. We know the major players in the conflict, we know the outcome, and some few small details here and there, but besides that, the game doesn't really go into too much depth, which was arguably one of the weaker aspects of Tears of the Kingdom storytelling. So, yeah. Like, it's a shame, like, there's anything I wanted to learn more about, it was the ancient version of Hyrule. The people who lived back then, the culture, the power dynamic between the different factions, so on and so forth. But we only got a very small glimpse of it all, spread across a small handful of memories. So that's kind of like the whole setup for it. And you know, from what we saw from some of the footage at least, let me pull it up real quick. There are some parts of it. I'll just this, or else we're gonna have two different sounds going together. Like there's that scene where she's like, I think it's here somewhere. Like, this is just tit for tat. This is just straight up from Tears of the Kingdom. It's the same cutscene, probably revised. But like this part here, you didn't really do this in Age of Calamity at all. You didn't really walk around like slowly. Like the way she walks here, that's like straight up just immersive gameplay, like the Last of Us type of gameplay where you just walk around, take in the environment. You didn't really get to do that in Age of Calamity at all. So I do feel like this game is going to be a little bit different in some regards. I don't even think you could walk slowly. Well, you could, but there was no point to it. So it's going to be more, yeah, I guess more open world-ish. So this shot alone made me quite excited for this. And I know there's going to be people who are like, no way, this is going to be canon. But, you know, again, there's really no use to debating that right now because we only have this. Yeah, you could walk in Age of Calamity, but it wasn't like part of the immersion, like of the gameplay itself. You were never expected to just walk around like this. It was just the battle starts and it's go time, and you just kill everything in sight. Whereas here, it seems like they do kind of take you on that guided tour. Because I think this is she's still wearing her normal outfit that she had on when she disappeared. So this is probably right after she arrives in ancient Hyrule, and they're just taking you to, like, there's no, maybe that will change later, but there's no HUD elements anywhere. So I guess this is the moment they take her to the Great Plateau to check out the capital. So I don't know, there's something about what I saw where I was like, this game is probably going to be slightly different. Oh, I don't care if you rain on my parade, Adbens, because we all have our own expectations and our own opinions for now, and none of it matters until we actually play the game. Like, none of it matters, because, you know, I could tell you right now it's gonna be canon and it's gonna be the most amazing Warriors title ever, but who, like, we don't know. We don't know. I'm just choosing to stay optimistic because this is what I wanted to see. Like, I'll take you through the timeline real quick. There's so much, when it comes to, like, the stuff that happens, there's so much that we don't get to see. Yeah, Nintendo did say it's canon, but, you know, it remains to be seen to what degree they will keep their word on that. I think they probably, hopefully will, but, you know, you have your own expectation. Everyone has their own expectations. But, like, if you, I don't know if any of you have read Masterwork so far, but there is so much that we never get to see. And in hindsight, when you watch the memories again, then you do see small little hints to those things. So it wasn't completely made up out of thin air, so to speak. Like, for example, like the first few things that happen, like you have Rauru and Sonia's pilgrimage of exorcism when they created the Shrines of Light. Rauru becomes king, and the Hyrule Kingdom is founded, and then shortly after that, Zelda arrives in Hyrule. Now, between these two events, there's already like at least a decade of time. Obviously, Zelda wasn't there, so we never get to see that. But there's one part that I mentioned in my video, which is this one. This is from one of the stone tablets that we find in Age of Calamity. So here, these are basically like historical records left behind by one of Rauru and Sonia's servants, or handmaidens, or whatever you want to call it. And it basically tells the story about, oh, they you know, there were monsters all over Hyrule. They were besieging and assaulting everyone, and basically, like, Rauru and Sonia set out to destroy this evil and placed these shrines to suppress these monsters from coming back, whatever. And my voice is already quite gone. Sorry for that. But like, you can tell here from this last sentence, she says, great king, great queen, I thank you. You fought when I was a maiden child, so that tomorrow could pass. So this happened like when this unnamed servant was still a child. So that has to be like at least a decade or so ago when this happened. So just these two events took almost a decade or more. Everything else leading up to that, like everything else after that, like after Zelda arrives, that takes place in pretty quick succession. Like, Zelda arrives in Hyrule, which is this memory, and this memory. I guess there's a little bit of time between these two because she does change clothes and stuff, but like, they talk about meeting up with Minoru here already. And when they get to this point, she so this is like maybe like a day apart. At that point, every race in Hyrule, all the tribes of Hyrule, so the Rito, the Gorons, the Zora, they've all sworn fealty to King Rauru, and they've all accepted him as the new leader of Hyrule. Except the Gerudo, because the Gerudo didn't really... I think this is mentioned here too. In Masterworks, temporary... Yeah, here it says, like, there was one tribe who objected to it, the Gerudo tribe, who had formed a kingdom... That they had their own kingdom at this time, obviously, with Ganondorf as their leader. And it says here, like, Hyrule Kingdom, which borrowed Rauru's power, was likely seen as nothing more than a temporary kingdom. So the Gerudo were like, yeah, we're not buying into this. We're not gonna bow down to some new king that suddenly rises up. Like, we have our own kingdom. And it even says somewhere here, somewhere in the book, that the Gerudo were actually more technologically advanced at the time. And they had a very strong military. So obviously, you know, why would they swear fealty to some random kingdom that just sprung up from nowhere, you know? But that's where we are here in the timeline. By the time Zelda arrives, the country has yet to be fully united. Like, the Gerudo are still kind of like, yeah, no, we're kind of doing our own thing. And then they attack the kingdom with the Molduga thingy. At which point they witness Rauru's, like, Dragon Ball Z style powers that he has. And that's when they realize, like, okay, they do have some bite. So that's probably not going to work if we just invade the kingdom or whatever. And that's when Ganondorf kind of switches tactics, where he's like, well, we're just gonna show fealty to him, to Rauru, which at that point also mentioned here, vassal. After, yeah, here it says he meaning Ganondorf, declared allegiance as a vassal of the kingdom, and Rauru recognized this. I don't know if you know what a vassal means, but a vassal is basically like, it's kind of like in Game of Thrones, where you have these, I think it was seven independent kingdoms, but they all swear fealty to one leader who's on the Iron Throne, you know, whatever. Like that's the closest thing I can think of. Yeah, like a vassal is, you do have some degree of independence, but you also answer to a certain leader, and that's basically what the Gerudo became after that cutscene where Ganondorf does this, where he like bows down to Rauru. At that point, the Gerudo kingdom becomes a vassal state of Rauru's kingdom, which was no doubt a tough pill to swallow for Ganondorf, you know, because he felt like Rauru was kind of a usurper. So, yeah. But here's where it gets kind of tricky. Or, well, not tricky, but like, here's where we get like a very, like a point in time which is not communicated well in Tears of the Kingdom at all. Like, in Tears of the Kingdom, it kind of seems like this part where the Gerudo swear fealty to Rauru, and then the killing of Sonia kind of take place almost back to back. Yeah, you can't really blame Ganondorf. True, to an extent, yeah. Which is something I actually like about games, like, in general. Like, when it comes to a story, I do like when there's certain gray areas, where it's like, you can actually empathize with the villains a little bit, too. Sorry, I'm just drinking water in between my voice from breaking down. But yeah, this part and this part where Sonia gets killed, there is like months, maybe even years between these two moments. But you don't really get that impression at all from the memories. Because first of all, you can watch them out of order. And second, you don't really get a good sense of space and time in the memories. So it just seems like, you know, Rauru just says like, oh, okay, yeah, Ganondorf is probably evil, but let's just keep him close for now. And then not long after that, Sonia gets killed. But in reality, there's like a huge amount of time between that. And Masterworks kind of shows that here too. Let me see, where is it? Like it even says, like Rauru could obviously see through Ganondorf's true nature, but he decided to keep him close. And it, like here's kind of where it gets to that point. Like, this may have been done with the aim of promoting peace and cultural exchange between Hyrule Kingdom and the Gerudo tribe. It would later on bring about tragedy. However, it was thought that it was possible that this compromise is why the Gerudo families were not enemies to the Kingdom of Hyrule. So basically, the moment Ganondorf swears fealty to Rauru, and the moment he kills Sonia and the imprisoning war actually starts, there's like a long period of time that we never get to see in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, the Gerudo and the Hylians basically built up this whole like friendly relationship with each other, which is repeated throughout Masterworks as well. Like, there was cultural exchange, there was like little stuff like trade. And when you look back at it, when you view some of the memories now, knowing this, some of it does kind of make sense, but still it's communicated very poorly in the game because of the whole memory system. They should have just gone with a different approach, in my opinion. I think what they should have done is that every time Link clears a big main objective, it should have switched to you controlling Zelda in the ancient past and having an adventure there. But we didn't really get that. You know, maybe every time Link clears a dungeon, one of your big rewards is you get to play a little section of the ancient past as Zelda. And then you get more of a sense of time progression and all the stuff that happened. But like I said, we didn't get that, so I actually have the cutscenes like right here, all the memories. Let me see. No, this is not it. Next one, Birth of the... But, like, you can tell that this is what they were going for. Because like I said, during that time between Sonia's death, or Ganondorf's visit to the castle, and then Sonia's death, there was enough time in between there that the Gerudo and the Hylians basically became friends. And you can tell that, again, that's what they were going for, because if you look at the scene here, where Ganondorf becomes the Demon King, I didn't even see this the first time when I played the game. I totally missed this, but you'll see it in a moment here. Four Wheel says, Nintendo was too busy copying the structure and plot of Breath of the Wild to really think about the new story ideas. Yeah, I agree. They relied a little bit too much on just doing the same thing again, but it didn't really work here, because in Breath of the Wild it was Link's own memories that he lost, so it didn't really have any impact on whatever was going on in the present. But in Tears of the Kingdom it had a huge... Like, Zelda basically lived a whole life in the ancient past. She wasn't just stuck there for a few weeks waiting to find a way to go home. She genuinely had to build a life there and just let go of that ambition to go home for quite a little while, which we'll get to in a moment, because Masterworks does describe that too, like how she did all these things while she lived there, which is why I said like she probably lived among these people in the ancient past for months, maybe even years. But yeah, like here you see like Ganondorf becomes the Demon King for the first time, and then the first thing he does is he starts summoning monsters to attack the kingdom, right? Like at first you see monsters spawning on the Great Plateau, which makes sense. That's where he is, and the Kingdom of Hyrule is his main. Oh, let me turn down the music. I can barely think. I'll turn it up for you. But yeah, like he attacks the Great Plateau, which makes sense. Hyrule is his main enemy at that point. But then, like, in between these scenes, you'll see this. This is the Gerudo Desert. So in the same cutscene, he does not just spawn monsters or like demons or whatever. He doesn't just spawn them at the Great Plateau. He also spawns them in the Gerudo Desert, and then, as you'll see one shot later, also in Hebra. So it's not just an attack on Rauru's kingdom, it's an attack on the entirety of Hyrule. And then later, like one memory later, we can see him doing the same thing again here. And this is clearly, if you watch here, this is Death Mountain. So I guess the only ones who were not attacked were the Zora. Although they probably did, but they just didn't show it. So there's... Why would he attack his own people right away? As soon as he becomes the Demon King, he starts attacking everything, including his own people. That kind of shows that, to an extent, Rauru's plan actually worked. Like, the Gerudo, he did actually manage to get the Gerudo, like, to soften them up and get them on his side. Which, by the time Ganondorf transforms into the Demon King, his own people have already kind of denounced him, which explains why there's suddenly a Gerudo Sage. And like I said, Masterworks does mention that too. Guess it's somewhere in here. Like his own people immediately appointed a new leader after he did this. The Demon King, humanity's gone. His only goal is to envelop the world in darkness. Yeah, exactly. Well, before he turns into the Demon King, before he becomes... before he gets the ability to... Like, he didn't have the ability to spawn his own army before. Like this... He wasn't able to do this before he got the Secret Stone. So as soon as he got the ability to summon his own demonic army, his own monsters, there was no use for the Gerudo anymore. Who at that time didn't even really align with his Secret Stone. I knew the meme was gonna come up at some point. Or Ganondorf simply never cared about his people and was always planning to betray. Well, I'm sure that if the Gerudo did stay loyal to him, he probably would have used them in war. But because Rauru kind of had this strategy of appeasement, trying to win the Gerudo over, which worked, he actually gained a pretty powerful ally, which I'm sure we're gonna see in Age of Imprisonment too. I'm pretty sure we will see like the Gerudo changing sides even before he becomes the Demon King, because they, at least according to Masterworks, Masterworks, that's kind of how it went down. So Ganondorf swears fealty to Rauru. Then there's a long time of peace and cultural exchange between the Hylians and the Gerudo, which again we never see, because we barely even see the Gerudo in the memories, or any of the other races for that matter. I think he did care about the Gerudo at first, but it's kind of like in Ocarina of Time, right? In Ocarina of Time, he also kind of ditches his own people and just sits on the throne in in Hyrule. Just he's an opportunist. He was gonna use the Gerudo to his advantage as long as they are useful to him. But the moment that he starts doing things that the Gerudo are like, well, we're not really down with this stuff, he ditches them. And that's what I meant before, is that as soon as he gets the power to literally create his own army, like army of monsters like this, he doesn't really need the Gerudo anymore. Like, why would you need the Gerudo if you can just literally summon summon Lionels? You know, that's the best ability that you can have. Good evening, Ramana. Like, this is where the game really fell short. Like, you see him charging into battle against who? Against an invisible enemy that we don't see what he's fighting. We just get this cool little cinematic, but it doesn't really mean anything. And I think Age of Imprisonment can improve on that and give more context in terms of, you know, all the locations that Ganondorf attacks and who he attacks. We'll get a chance to see him scheming in the shadows, and like even that part where he kills Sonia, where he takes on this puppet Zelda, this fake Zelda, even that is already described here. Also by the same unnamed servant, who says, I heard stories of a strange lady who walks around the castle in the dark of night. She and Princess Zelda seem twins, but there's no light in her eyes. She looks more like dead than not, like more like a dead thing. So this was going on for a while. It wasn't just a one-off where suddenly a fake Zelda showed up at the castle and that was it. In reality, there was maybe like weeks that this was going on, that they kept seeing the I think the name of this stone tablet is like the what was it again? An ancient ghost story. So I guess Ganondorf was using this puppet Zelda to kind of test the waters, maybe try to look for a secret stone in the castle, take it. But then he realized it couldn't be done and he had to actually get involved. And that's when he kills Sonia. But like, the memories make it seem like this all takes place really quickly, all back to back, which kind of makes Rauru look like an idiot too, because it's like, oh, you didn't realize Ganondorf was going to betray you, like this obviously evil guy. But when you read Masterworks, it really starts to make a little bit more sense why Rauru did what he did. I think I mentioned that here. I will rewrite parts of this because I don't really like the flow right now. I usually just write the script, like just punch it out, and then afterwards I start restructuring it and make sure it actually has some chronology to it. But let's see. I'll just read the part that I mean. Oh yeah, here. Now, as far as the timeline goes, everything from the moment of Zelda's arrival up until and including Ganondorf's visit to the castle did happen in pretty quick succession, which we can see from the wording used in the book, like not long after, briefly after that, stuff like that. But between Ganondorf's visit and Sonia's death, there's actually a significant time gap, a time in which, according to the book, the Hylians and the Gerudo lived in peace and built positive relationship by engaging in trade, cultural exchange, and probably some other activities as well, which is kind of the jokey part of it. But you wouldn't know that from just the memories because, first of all, they don't really provide a clear sense of time and place, which isn't helped by the fact that most people will view them out of order on their first playthrough. And secondly, we barely see the Gerudo or any of the other tribes for that matter, and how they interacted with each other during this peacetime. That and the fact that everything regarding Rauru's background, his rise to kingship, and his overall power structure... Hey, Mikey! His overall power structure in ancient Hyrule is painted with the broadest brush possible. And so it's no surprise why the ancient past narrative feels rushed and underdeveloped. As a result, it makes Rauru come off as kind of a buffoon, too stupid to see that Ganondorf was obviously going to betray him at some point, and that he should have just vaporized him with his Kamehameha blast right then and there. But the more you read the book, the more you understand decisions he makes. The Zonai are, for all intents and purposes, spiritual beings first and foremost. In fact, their entire culture and doctrines are heavily inspired by Shintoism and Zen Buddhism, where things like wisdom, personal growth, and harmony are considered most important. As such, Rauru is kind of a pacifist who doesn't believe in things like war and conquest. His whole quote-unquote empire was built on peace and cooperation as opposed to military might. Simply killing someone where they stand just because they might do something bad in the future goes against everything he stands for and believes in. The idea was that just like he was able to convince or sway the other tribes with acts of goodwill, there was hope that he could reach the Gerudo in the same way, that they too would eventually soften up to him and see the benefits of working together as opposed to making war. And you're not exactly going to achieve that by killing or jailing their beloved king, who despite his secret agenda was still greatly admired by his own people. In fact, most of the Gerudo probably were not even aware that Ganondorf had ulterior motives, and genuinely thought that joining forces with the Kingdom of Hyrule was just him doing what's best for his people. And you know what? Despite being naive and perhaps even misguided, Rauru's tactics of appeasement did actually pay off to some extent. Let's be fair, Ganondorf was always going to get his hands on the Secret Stone sooner or later, just like he was destined to obtain the Triforce in Ocarina of Time. Trying to kill Ganondorf prematurely was not only against Rauru's philosophy, but it would have been a huge risk to take as well. I mean, what if he failed and Ganondorf managed to not only escape, but still get his hands on the Secret Stone? This would have meant that the Hylians not only had to contest with Ganondorf's army of monsters, but the entire Gerudo army as well. And I think this is where I kind of stopped writing. It would have been disastrous, I guess. Would have been disastrous. Oh. Disastrous? Will Dark Link be in the... I don't know. Maybe? I wouldn't call him a buffoon. People take offense. Well, but that's what I mean. Like the way the memories are structured, it makes it seem like he's kind of an idiot. When in reality, if you read what his actual plan was, it wasn't really that crazy of an idea. And it even kind of paid off in the end, because the Gerudo were on his side by the time the war starts, which no doubt changed the outcome to some degree. Because let's not forget that they did kind of win the imprisoning war, even though it did take Rauru sacrificing his own life for it, but Gerudo are known for being amazing warriors, and as we can see in Old Hyrule, didn't seem like they seemed to have amazing... Oh, Old Hyrule didn't have amazing defenses. It would crumble pretty easily. Exactly, yeah. So his tactic of getting the Gerudo on his side was actually beneficial. It did lead to the death of Sonia, which sucks. But I don't know. He probably, first of all, we don't even know if Rauru was in on the whole plot of trying to confront this fake Zelda. That could have easily been Sonia and Zelda conspiring together to take that action in a naive way, and therefore Sonia was killed. It doesn't seem like Rauru was in on that. Ganondorf's name was lost to time, that's why Zelda doesn't recognize the name. The royal family hid it. Yeah, exactly. It's like the Voldemort situation, right? Like if you don't speak the name of evil, then they get people will forget. Oh, thank you so much, Dreamweaver. That means a lot. Well, that's one reason why I still haven't uploaded this video, because it was supposed to go up today, but 2 days ago I already realized, like, I'm not gonna make it. That's not gonna happen, because as far as voiceover goes, I've only recorded up until page 3. Yeah, this is the last. Wait, actually, I can pull it up real quick. Audition. Then you can hear my raw voice before I put on all the filters and stuff. Very different. You know, that's good for you. A lot of fakery. So this is the voiceover I have right now. It's only 5 minutes long, so for very long. In fact, the country is yet to be fully united. While the other tribes have all accepted Rauru as the new king of the land, the Gerudo have yet to recognize the new kingdom that rose up so suddenly in central Hyrule. And I might even do a retake of this, because I do sound a little bit tired and bored here. Any and all invitations for an audience with the king and queen had been rejected. As Masterworks puts it, for the Gerudo tribe who preserved their kingdom's unique culture of strong military might and people rising to the top qualified by their power, Hyrule Kingdom, which borrowed Rauru's power, was likely seen as nothing more than a temporary kingdom. So yeah, that's approximately here. Yeah, that's this part here. Actually, I should. There we go. Anytime it's a quote, I always put it in italic. I think your voice is peaceful to listen to. Well, yeah, thank you. I do sound sleepy, yeah. Well, that's because I usually record most of my voices in the morning when my voice is still fresh. Because now, like, I've had a whole day of talking to people and just, you know, using my voice, and it's completely destroyed by the end. Like halfway through the day, there's nothing left. It's an affliction that I will never get over. So annoying. According to Masterworks, the Imprisoning War, also known as the Sealing War in Japanese, officially kicks off when... But to be fair, when you amplify this and you apply the right filters, just a little bit of a bass boost, a little bit of getting rid of background noise and stuff, it does sound a lot better. I can actually show you the difference. I hope I won't blow up the speaker. I'll show you the difference between the non-processed and processed versions of my voice. I'll do the most recent video. So this is Dawn unused. Are a controlled experience. We see what the level designers want us to see, and we do what the program. For the vast majority of people, video games are a controlled experience. We see what the level designers want us to see, and we do what the program. Wait, this is an old script. What the heck? Oh, there we go. This is what's known as the entrance table for Ocarina of Time. It's basically a list of every location in the game, plus all the entrances or spawn points that exist within them. So, for example, if an area has 6 ways in, it will show up on the list 6 times, once for every spawn point. But that's without any Like that's raw. That's just how I recorded it. So now we take the processed version. This is what's known as the entrance table for Ocarina of Time. It's basically a list of every location in the game, plus all the entrances or spawn points that exist within them. So for example, if an area has 6 ways in, it will show up on the list 6 times, once for every spawn point. You hear the difference, right? It's a massive difference. This is what's known as the entrance table for Ocarina of Time. It's basically a list of every... It sounds much more thick when you apply the quote-unquote YouTube filters to it. Like it becomes, it basically takes the hype, like the what do you call it, the maximum volume and the lowest volume, and it squeezes it together. So the louder parts become softer, the softer parts become louder, so it sounds more uniform. That's basically how that works. It's a very easy thing to do. It's not rocket science by any means, but pretty much every YouTuber does it because it just makes your voice sound more. It makes it sound better, more intelligible. Because especially when you start a sentence. By the end, by the time, especially if it's a long sentence, by the time you reach the end of the sentence, you kind of run out of steam a little bit. Even if you have a good voice, like the beginning of this of a sentence is always louder than the, like, let's say 2 or 3 final words that you speak, because we have to breathe at some point. You know. So you're definitely gonna hear a difference in that. Yeah, this is I'm probably gonna animate this little crude timeline that I built. Is Bob the Builder canon? Oh, you did? Were you checking out my script? This is also part of a joke. The Imprisoning War? No, not that one. The one from A Link to the Past. This one is one of the more elusive aspects of Tears of the Kingdom story. Also, now you can tell why it takes me so long to record a voiceover, because I stumble over my words constantly. Like, I can barely get through a single sentence. I have to do, like, every single sentence here, I have to do it at least 3 times. Probably more, depending on the sentence. Just as an example, it's the catalyst for practically everything that happened in the thousands of years that followed. Okay, that one went well. But I would probably listen back to it and hear like a weird inflection in my voice, and then I do it again anyway. Yeah, you were checking out my script, weren't you? While Link is off playing Bob the Builder. That's probably just gonna show Link doing the Zonai device thingy. Theory, President Hudson was secretly Calamity Ganon all along. That's so he lived like, he's like more than 100 years old then, or thousands of years, I should say. Motley says it's a rumor, not a known fact. Memory serves. Personally, my theory is that Calamity Ganon, the last decade remnants of Ocarina of Time Ganon. Oh god, let's not get into the timeline in general. Oh well, actually, it's right here in Masterworks, and it's confusing. It's very, very confusing because it doesn't really fit with anything else. Like, it starts here with literally with creation and goddess Hylia being like, the earth has been entrusted to the goddess Hylia, and then it just suddenly jumps to the Zonai and all that stuff and the secret stones, and it's like, wait, when did that happen? Why did no one bring up the secret stones during Skyward Sword? Is Masterworks canon? I would say so. Yeah, just like all the other books. Obviously, the books will always contain mistakes, but so do the games. Made a whole video about this. I think we should take them as canon for sure, because the developers themselves say it is, and you can just weed out the mistakes. It's not that hard. You just see what happens in the game, contrast it to the book. If it doesn't match, then the game is probably leading, unless stated otherwise. But canonicity in general is always difficult. It's always going to be a challenge to decide, because fan opinions sometimes make it seem like everyone has already written off Age of Calamity as non-canon, even though Nintendo never said that. They've never stated what the canonicity of Age of Calamity is. Not that it matters, because Age of Calamity takes place in its own separate timeline bubble thingy, so it doesn't really impact the story of either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. So even if it was canon, it doesn't matter. But people make it seem like the game was stated to be non-canon by Nintendo, which is it's just not true. Show me the link. Show me the quote from the Zelda team where they specifically say that, which they did for the first Hyrule Warriors, by the way. The first Hyrule Warriors, they specifically said, yeah, it's just a fanfic, it's not canon. But for Age of Calamity, they've always kept it ambiguous. So yeah, like Novus Creed said, it's canon to its own universe. That's what I've always said about it. Exactly. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. Like, oh, but the box Terrico was in is not in Breath of the Wild. Well, I mean, come on. we can keep going like that, like pointing out super tiny details. We can probably use those same arguments to make Twilight Princess non-canon. Because it doesn't 100% match to what came before, you know? Yeah, nothing in Age of Calamity is really contradicting. Exactly. Like, I guess some would say, like, oh, but if they summoned, for example, one of the champions, like, what's his face? Well, any of them, really. Like, if they summoned Yunobo from the past, from the other timeline, shouldn't he remember that in Tears of the Kingdom? But who's to say that's the same Yunobo? I know this is like like this is like straight up Back to the Future logic here, but it's a split timeline, so that timeline has a future of its own. So who's to say that the Yunobo that we summon in Age of Calamity isn't the Yunobo from that same timeline just in the future? You know, it doesn't have to be the exact same Yunobo from Breath of the Wild and later Tears of the Kingdom's timeline, you know? Because as far as we can tell, like, obviously there's mistakes in there. Link should not have the Master Sword. He should already have the Master Sword when Terrico arrives. Because in Masterworks it said that he got the sword when he was young. Like really, really young. Like, I don't know, 11, 12? Hyrule Warriors was a fever dream. Well, you can definitely approach it that way, for sure. I think I made a animation for that at some point. I'll show you my huge big archive. This is my big archive with everything in it. All the footage I have, all the music, this is my external hard disk. I don't know how much more space I have on it at this point. Let me see. Oh, it's almost full. 6 terabytes of used space. Jesus. Yeah, the capacity is 7 terabytes. This is why I don't work with 4K footage, because that's going to crank up my my space even more. But Here's all my animations that I did, I think. Footage. Animations. I should have one that shows the timeline games of Age of Calamity, I mean. Age of Calamity. I should name my thing better. Actually, I do have to take a quick toilet break. I am about to when I watch this, I'm like, oh, man, I animated so much, so much stuff. In here somewhere, timeline, timeline. Oh, here we go. Yeah, here. So this is the comparison. So this is the events from 10,000 years ago. Zelda is born. Prophecy, preparation for the calamity starts, and then Hyrule is destroyed. Terco travels back, a new timeline is created. But that timeline has a future, the same future that this one has. So the Yunobo that we summon in that game could very well be from this part of the timeline, not this part. Which would explain why Yunobo in Tears of the Kingdom isn't like, hey, you're never gonna guess what I went through just now. I was suddenly summoned to a different universe and I helped defeat Calamity Ganon. It could just be the Yunobo from this future, which until Terco arrives is still set to play out this way. It's because Terco arrives here and changes things that, you know, things happen differently. But I'm sure that that's not going to be relevant to Age of Imprisonment, because nobody really dies in Tears of the Kingdom except Rauru, which is at the very, very end during the conclusion. So it doesn't really matter. Like, the problem, the big conundrum they had with Age of Calamity, which they should have thought about earlier, to be honest, is that Warriors games are all about leveling up your characters, and you know, you put your experience points and your new weapons into your favorite characters. But what if those characters are supposed to die halfway through the story, like the champions, or like King King Rome? You know, then you lose that character, that character that you put all your experience points in. So I think that's the moment they were like, "Ah, fuck, we can't really show you the events from 100 years ago, because what are we gonna do with all these? It's all about the characters with these games. It always has been. You have a favorite character that you pick out. You have like this giant roster, and they kind of incentivize you to play with all of them, play around with them, outfit them, give them the best weapons, and then you put your experience points in the ones you like the most. So what if you level up Daruk? What if Daruk is your favorite character? You level him up, and then he dies halfway through the story, and you lose that character. They don't really have that problem with Age of Calamity, with Age of Imprisonment. Sorry, because in that game, in that story, I should say, nobody really dies until the very, very end, after the conclusion. Rauru and Ganondorf technically kind of sort of die, and Minoru also, but that's like after. So let me put the music back on. Better. Anyway, I am going to take a quick toilet break, and then we'll talk about more of this, or we can talk about Switch 2, whatever you guys want. Oh yeah, except for Sonia. You're right, Black Links. I totally forgot about Sonia. Maybe Sonia won't be playable. I don't know. We'll see what happens to Sonia. I'm gonna bet that she's either not playable or she's like a side character. Whatever. Yeah, totally. How could I forget about Sonia? That's... you know, the sages, Zelda herself, Rauru, none of them die until the very, very, very end. Or at least Rauru does. And like I said, there's probably gonna be non-canon things to that game, just like you could play as Calamity Ganon in Age of Calamity. You know, you could fight Calamity Ganon as Calamity Ganon. So, yeah, there's gonna be non-canon elements to it. I'm sure of that, but I'm okay with that. As long as the game is fun, and as long as they kind of, especially after just having published Masterworks, which also, by the way, I think we probably will get the English version of Masterworks before we get Age of Imprisonment. Because with creating a champion, it took about a year. Minoru dies at the end, Drew. Well, she doesn't die, but her body dies, which is why she's a robot in the future, because she no longer has a body. Her physical body died thousands and thousands of years ago. She was hit by the malice, and it was eating away at her body. Which, I think that's footage. Critical decision. If it's this one. Oh yeah, it is. Like here you can see, like she's all screwed up from the malice. She is dying at this point, and then but she has the ability to transfer her spirit into other objects or things or bodies. So she has the benefit of just transporting her spirit into the Purapad. But she does, her body dies. But again, this is after Ganondorf has already been defeated. So it doesn't really impact the gameplay for Age of Imprisonment. But yeah, you guys just talk amongst yourself for a few minutes. I'm gonna quickly take a bathroom break, and then we'll get back. We can talk about Switch 2, we can talk about more Age of Imprisonment, whatever you guys want. So, I'll be right back. already back. Let's see what everyone has to say. Different than Mallet? Apparently, yes. Also, that's also an interesting thing that the person who did the translations for Masterworks pointed out. Like this whole part, the exorcism of pilgrimage, where they placed all the shrines and stuff, and so apparently there were these hotspots all across Hyrule where demons keep pouring into the mortal world, and Rauru basically said, well, we're gonna take care of that, and they killed all of these monsters, but then they also placed shrines there to purify that location, and the mechanism through which these monsters keep entering the world, the term they use for that, the Japanese term, is the same term they use for demise curse. So it's like part of this endless cycle of like there's always going to be evil pouring into the world. They point that out here. Demise's curse term is used for this deep-seated grudge. An inhuman entity that could be the source of monsters is unclear, but there was an evil presence that harmed the people of the earth. Rauru and Sonia, who had thought about creating a kingdom where all the people could live in peace, traveled to each place one by one where the evil spirit and evil thoughts were strong. So that explains where the shrines of light came from. I think that's pretty cool to mention that. Why is it we always get the coolest bits of lore in the localization process? Yeah, that's true. Well, because there's just certain terms or certain ideas or concepts that don't exist in our language. You know the Japanese movie The Grudge, right? Or Yuan as it's called. Like it's on. We don't really have that here. Well, maybe to some extent, but it's not as deep rooted here, which is why Japanese horror is so good. It deals with this idea that hatred can linger in a specific place or a specific item or but yeah. Anyway, we were at the rough timeline. Like I said, I'm probably gonna animate this, just like I did with my very first big video that I ever put out, where I made this like film reel. I think I'm gonna do something similar to that, and just show how all the memories, how all the memories take place, in what order, and then all the stuff that we don't see that Masterworks vibes. Like trying to translate a film about Aeside, Japanese, something's going to be lost. Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey, Lily. Sorry, I totally missed your comment. I'm doing well, yeah. Thank you for dropping by. But yeah, between this and this, there's a huge time gap where the Gerudo and the Hylians basically became BFFs and started trading with each other and exchanging culture. And Ganondorf kind of just sticks to the shadows. Like, obviously he has a secret agenda to take Secret Stone, but he doesn't really act upon it until way, way later. And in the meantime, Zelda goes through this whole life, basically, which I think is also mentioned here. Back to Golem fact. Where are you? Remains of the Golem Factory. Yeah, they call it Golem Factory, but it's the Construct Factory. Where is it? Be here somewhere. In terms of the Golem Factory, in register becomes manager. Part. Like, basically it describes how Zelda helped Minru's like restore functionality to the Golem Factory, to the Construct Factory, and they ran experiments and all that kind of stuff, which obviously would have taken months, if not longer. Zelda learned to control her power through Sonia's mentorship, or her teachings, which is all stuff that we don't see. Again, Zelda had a whole life in the ancient past that we don't see, which is why I said before, like, it would have been better if they had a playable segment in Tears of the Kingdom. Like, every time Link completes the main story goal, you get to play a little bit of the ancient past as Zelda, which unfortunately they didn't do. But Age of Imprisonment at least has the potential to fill in those gaps. Oh, I agree, Anthony. I'm also ready to move on to a new era of Zelda, but I'm still happy that we at least, because this is not a mainline Zelda game, you know, it's not even made by the same developer team, the development. So it doesn't really take away much time from real Zelda project, quote unquote real Zelda projects. I'm just happy to see this. I think Age of Imprisonment is going to be worth it just for the cutscene and all the story elements that we didn't see, especially the ones described in Masterworks, because there's so much stuff in here. This is just the third chapter. This whole part that I'm showing right here, this is just the third chapter of the book. There's two more. So it describes so many things that happened during this time. And for my video, I'm mostly going to focus on the imprisoning war itself, because even with the imprisoning war, or sealing war, I think it's called. Sealing war, the sealing. There we go. So right here, like, they even provide maps of like how the different armies moved. So at some point, the Hyrule Kingdom, the capital, which is the Great Plateau at that point, falls. And then the whole Hylian army, including Rauru and everyone else, they retreat to the Forgotten Temple. And then this is, again, something they never show in the actual game. They actually recapture the capital. But according to the book, at a great loss. So they lost a significant amount of their soldiers trying to take back the capital. But they did succeed. They actually succeeded at recapturing the Great Plateau. And then at that point, I guess they kind of realized, like, yeah, we're never going to hold the capital forever against all these, because Ganondorf can just keep summoning more and more monsters. And then they decide to draw him to the Temple of Light. And Rauru kind of expected Ganondorf, because he's prideful and all that stuff, that he would fall for this, which he did. So they lured him to the Temple of Light. And the reason why is because the Temple of Light apparently had some sort of special sacred power lingering there, which would amplify their Rauru's own power, as well as that of the sages, I would assume. So they thought, like, oh, we can take him to this part. It's like fighting on holy ground. It's like luring a vampire into a church, basically, you know? that was the idea behind all this. But we never see this in Tears of the Kingdom at all. They just... We see a very, very brief cutscene of them taking the secret stones, giving them to the sages, or they become the sages with the secret stones. Then Rauru talks briefly about how he's going to sacrifice himself, blah, blah, blah. And then the very next scene is them standing in the Temple of Light, in that same room where Ganondorf is imprisoned. And they're fighting him. But apparently, before that even happens, they recapture the capital, they draw him into the Temple of Light, all that kind of stuff. It even says that the Hylian army played a big role in this. And probably the Gerudo army to an extent as well. So, you know, it's such a shame that they never showed this, because it makes the story of Tears of the Kingdom so much weaker as a result, you know? If they actually showed this kind of stuff, then it would have made so much more sense. All of it would have made so much more sense. But for the past year or so, I've just been frustrated by it. Where I'm like, well, how did this all come to be? How does it all fit together? And now we have the answer in the form of a book. Or at least we had an answer in the form of the book until now. And now that Age of Imprisonment has been announced, hopefully, finally, this will get a more satisfying conclusion. Go, don't tell. Yeah, exactly. There's a certain degree of, like, you can leave certain things out, but not to that extent. The Secret King Demon Stone. Yeah, instead of showing that, they could have, 4 times in a row, they could have shown this. They could have shown some sort of cool battle taking place, or instead of just nothing. And I don't want this to turn into a hate speech about Tears of the Kingdom, because Tears of the Kingdom, it's still a fun game and all that. But I do understand the frustrations people had, at least with the ancient, like the ancient Hyrule narrative. It's just so underdeveloped because of leaving stuff like this out. But then again, it did set the stage for this Age of Imprisonment game, you know. Guess it all came full circle in the end. The conflict of trying to tell a linear story whilst keeping the game maximally open world. Well, not entirely, because, like I said, they could have done something creative with it. Like, imagine if every time Link beat one of the main story dungeons, you got to play a little bit as Zelda in the ancient past. Like, you have maybe an hour of gameplay as Zelda. And you get to walk around ancient Hyrule and talk to people and just see how her life was during this time. Maybe experience some of the imprisoning war. Then you have that part where you fight Phantom Ganon at the castle. Could have also been rewarded with an ancient past section. That would have been... Yeah, like I think that would have been amazing. Because it also rewards you for completing the story quests. It kind of reminds me of... Paper Mario, the Thousand Year Door, where you have those sections where you play as Peach. And I think the first Paper Mario had that too. What about Rauru and Sonia's kid? It is mentioned in Masterworks, actually. Child. Oh, there we go. Yeah, Rauru's children are mentioned here, so Rauru did have children. Wow, there's a word children is used. It mentions somewhere. Where is it? So much. Oh, did I already loop around? I don't remember where it's mentioned, but it says that there had to have been a child. Basically, that's The fact that there's a bloodline between them and they both die. Sorry. There had to have been a child. Well, maybe they will finally show that in Age of Imprisonment. Rauru and Sonia were very busy, yeah. Well, that by children they could just mean like his offspring in general. Like his children will also have children, grandchildren. Yeah, Rauru's powers came from a combination of Rauru's light power and Sonia's time power. But they never show that in the nowhere do they even mention a child, which you would think would be at least somewhat relevant, given the fact that Sonia just died and Rauru is about to make the ultimate sacrifice. He talks to Zelda about this. He should have at least mentioned, like, oh, I hope my kid will forgive me for this, because he's gonna be an orphan soon. But I'm trying to, like, if I bloodline or... Since the power of the first King Rauru and Queen Sonia has continued to pass down through Hyrule's royal line as sacred power. Should be mentioned somewhere. Oh yeah, the blood moon, I forgot about that. I also want to do a video about the blood moon at some point. They just expected us to put 2 and 2 together. Yeah, I get that. Like, you can deduce just from process of elimination that they should have had kids, or like Occam's razor, they should have had kids, or else Zelda wouldn't exist. But since it has actual implications, they should have at least showed it. Because, like I said, Sonia was already dead. Rauru was a widower at that point. So, but then he's like, I'm going to give it my all, and I'm gonna make I'm gonna sacrifice myself if I have to. That's a huge deal, you know? Especially if your kid has lost one of its parents at that point. So annoying. I wish I could this. Oh, here we go. It's this one. Today, no remaining Kingdom Foundation documents recording the birth of a child between the first King and Queen of Hyrule have been found, and no oral myths speak about a child. However, since the power of the first King and Queen of blah 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 blah, sacred power. Yeah, okay. So this is literally what it says. Like, there's no record of a kid, but they have to have had it. How else would there be a blood connection? Even in real life, you see young monarchs as history. Yeah, of course. But it would have just been nice if they meant or showed it some way. Or even if they just had recorded it on one of those stone tablets, where maybe that unnamed servant talks about, like, oh, I took the kid and brought it to safety. Or throws a bone there. So we at least can put that outside. Because it just seems really weird that they never even mentioned that. Where did you get your copy last to work? Just got the, what was it? It's a Japanese website. You can just order it from there. There's many places. Play Asia, it's called. It took a while to arrive, but I got it like about a month the release. I have it right here. Oh, there it is. You can't see it, but I can. But yeah, I just ordered the book, but these translations are from someone else. I would assume, have their own copy, and they just translated everything to their best of their ability. Know if they truly make Age of Imprisonment canon, it makes sense now why Nintendo so much out of Tears. Yeah, I guess. But I would still argue that it would have been better if they just supplemented while the original story, because you can fill in any story like in retrospect. But I prefer if I just know as much as I can through the original story first, and everything else should just be supplementary or complementary. Hey Banoon, oh, you just joined. I'm doing good. How about you yourself? Have you gotten over your Discord hack? For those of you who don't know, like Banoon's Discord got hacked, and they started sending me messages like, "Hey, can you help me with something? Like, can you?" I don't remember what it was. They wanted help with something. And most people who got that message probably thought, oh, that's a scam. But me and Banoon, we have been working together on certain things before. So it wasn't really out of the ordinary that she would ask for help with something. So I almost fell for it. I don't remember what it was, though. Oh, they wanted me to test out a game that they were working on. That was it. Yeah, they wanted me to play test. I escaped that one by the skin of my teeth. Hey Adam, how's it going? Just keep running into each other through each other's streams. Yeah, I'm also glad I was smart enough. Well, like I said, I almost fell for it. It didn't. It was very close. Let me just play all the. Turn off shuffle mode. Guys had something more bad in the background. These are all at 60 FPS. I'm actually curious if they, well, for the Switch 2 versions, they will just have all the. Wait. How can Sonya be a Hylian Hyrule before? Well, we can assume that there was an Hyrule before that. But we don't really know. Maybe we'll learn more about that. Age of Imprisonment. Although I doubt that they will go into all that timeline stuff before. I think they will just keep that ambiguous. Because it's very hard to connect. There's a high. Well, the difference is a Hyrulean is someone who's part of the kingdom of Hyrule. Or sorry, someone who lives in the land of Hyrule. And a Hylian is someone who lives under the rule of Hyrule. So Hylian and Hyrule, like the Zora are also Hyruleans because they live in the land of Hyrule, but they're not part of the kingdom of Hyrule. Hylians are a race, whereas Hyruleans are just everyone who, like, just like we're all Earthling. Because you can tell from the memorial thingy that's in the Typhlo ruins, it talks about all the Hyruleans, including the sages. And of course the sages are not just Hylians, they're also Zora and Gorons. Sidon's wife is not a Hyrulean in good catch, Office Creek. So that, I guess that's kind of the difference. It's always been a little bit vague because obviously you had the Skyloftian in Skyward Sword, which is before the Hylians even existed. But they are the same people when it comes to their blood. The Zonai are their own thing, the Gorons are their own. But yeah, you're right. Sidon's wife is from outside of Hyrule. It's always been confusing because the world or the land itself is also called Hyrule, but the kingdom is also Hyrule. So, you know, even before Hyrule as a kingdom was founded, the land itself was already called Hyrule. My mic keeps dipping out, really? Maybe I'm just not talking into it properly. Yeah, that's probably it. Or it's my OBS failing. Also possible. So if I just suddenly disconnect, then you know why. I just tend to call the world light, the light world, or the world. Well, that's just everything. It, like, the whole reality. Or the whole dimension. Yeah, I do have a gate on it, but I keep looking away at my my chat, but then my mouth. This microphone has a very shallow range. As soon as I. So now you can hear me. Now you can hear me. Now you can hear me. And then it just cuts out. So sorry for that. I should just talk directly into the microphone. Yeah, I guess Earth or everything that's made of matter. That's the light world. Yeah, the world, the planet is called Earth. That's true. But I guess it's kind of like we have like normal matter and we have antimatter and dark energy, and we only see normal matter. We don't see anything else. I'm also still working on a video for that, but that will have to wait because that's going to be a difficult one to explain. It's very complicated. Is it just still repeating the same? Oh, it is. Why doesn't it just play all the cutscene? Oh, that's... No, stop it. Then it's just so there's something happening in the background. The light world might be a multiverse. I guess it kind of is already. Age of Imprisonment's gonna have a never OC villain, probably. What do you mean by that? We probably will see more of Kaome and Kotake, which I'm excited about. I hope we even get to play as them at some point. That would be cool. Maybe they also switch sides, just like Master Koga did in Age of Calamity. No, Aster is not going to be in Age of Imprisonment. That's like way before his time. I mean, just to put it into perspective, even the events from 10,000 years ago when the Guardians and the Divine Beasts were built, even that is like the distant future from the perspective of Rauru's Hyrule. That's like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40, maybe 50,000 years before that. There's a huge time gap between all of this. Which is also why I said before, the ancient heroes aspect, that guy, the half Zonai, half Hylian guy that we see in Tears of the Kingdom, if he's going to be in the game, he's probably going to be more like a non-canon character, because he's not supposed to exist in that timeline either. He's from 10,000 years ago. He's on the tapestry, which is long, long before any of the events from Rauru's time. It makes no sense if he's there, unless it's like a non-canon appearance. Why does it keep switching? Oh my god, it's so... Oh. Happens. I don't know my computers, man. I was Koga like 100 plus years old, but a short Chica man. He's not the same Koga as the one that we see in Age of Calamity, actually. You wouldn't be able to tell because they look the exact same, but they're actually not the same person. He's like an ancestor of the... Koga is a title, like Sensei. Koga was never meant to be the same character as the one from Breath of the Wild. It is funny that they have the exact same body shape and the exact same demeanor and all that, but yeah, he's like his great-great-grandfather, the Koga that we see in the Age of Calamity. Yeah, that's been confirmed. I don't remember where I saw that or read that, but he's not the same guy. I just wish Suga survived and he was still in the story. He's probably my favorite character in Age of Calamity. Yeah, but like I said, David, Koga is a title, it's not a name. But from what I understand, he's not the same guy. Maybe I'm wrong. If you can point me to a source, I would be happy to look into it, obviously. But I remember seeing somewhere someone said it's not actually the same guy. How could it be? I mean, he should have been at least... I mean, I know the Chica are still alive too, but they're like all... like old people then by that point. And they were very young. Younger than Koga probably was. Like Robbie was younger than Koga, I would assume. And he's like an old, tiny Chica man. I literally cannot remember where I read that, but... Giga magic. Well, okay, there you go. Magic is the answer to everything. Maybe bananas are the secret to immortality in Zelda. Oh, maybe. Like I said, I really don't know where I saw that. I remember reading it somewhere. A wizard did it. They were right about the bananas. Well, then everyone should start stuffing bananas in their face from that point, because apparently it keeps you young enough that you look exactly the same 100 years later. This is from Skyward Sword, Raffi. Check the playlists. Which one is it? I think it's Bamboo Island. Yeah, it is Bamboo Island. A long playlist. Skyward Sword has so many good tracks. Says genuinely not expected. One of my. So, how we all feeling about the Switch 2? Just to sideline it for a moment. Unless you guys prefer to keep talking about Zelda, I'm fine with that too. I really hope Ganondorf gets some much needed character work. Yeah, I agree. I think he will. Like I said, Age of Calamity's cutscenes combined were like 3.5 hours long. So it's probably going to be pretty substantial. I especially hope that we see more interactions between all the different factions or races, whatever you want to. I've watched too many Zelda theory videos. I can't find it. Well, it's fine. I mean, again, Occam's razor would say that he's probably not the same guy, unless he did find some way of preserving his youth all this time. But then why did no one else do that? But it doesn't really matter anyway, because again, it takes place in its own self-contained universe. Right? My OBS keeps... I really want a Kirby Warriors games. Just contact Sakurai. Ask if he can lend out his IP. I'd be okay with the console price itself if it weren't for the upcharging of every feature of the... Well, I can share my take, but I don't know if it's going to be popular or not. Probably not. Like, I tend to look at issues or drama like this on a point-by-point basis, not like the whole thing. So I don't really get on the hype or hate train. I just look at every case. Like, do I think Mario Kart should be $80? No. I much prefer if it wasn't. And it sucks that Nintendo had to be the first company to take that step towards the $80 price mark. Like, it was gonna happen sooner or later. I'm convinced of that. It just sucks that Nintendo had to be the one to do that. Because the first one to do it was always gonna take all the flack. Because now, if Sony does it too, like, let's say 2 years later from now, like, Sony will start introducing their first $80 games, then people can just say, well, it's because Nintendo started it. So you were always going to... Whoever was going to do it first was going to lose. They're going to be blamed for it until the end of time. Even though there were already rumors that GTA was going to be $100. So there was already some stirring about that. But Nintendo is the first one to do it in an official manner, like the... Until we... Well, let's be fair, like, if I I want to at least touch upon some of that, because I do notice that people will repeat whatever they hear without actually fact-checking it. And again, I'm not trying to defend a billion-dollar company here, because God knows I have my grievances with Nintendo as a company. In fact, the only reason I make Zelda videos is because I like Zelda, not because I like Nintendo. I've always found Nintendo to do things that are very questionable. I think they are very archaic in some of their thinking. Like, they're so far ahead in some aspects and they're so far behind in others. And they are a very frustrating company to work with. As someone who was way into the Pro Smash circuit, not like as an actual top player myself, but you know, as a fan of the Pro circuit, I know all about how frustrating it can be to deal with Nintendo. Just the fact that they don't really embrace competitive gaming, the fact that they always want to do it their way. You know, someone makes a mod for Melee so that people can play it online. Instead of just letting that slide, they have to make a big think about it. It's just annoying. But that being said, I do think people are a little bit overreacting when it comes to the price increases of games, because we have been blessed the past 2 decades. Games were always going to get more expensive at some point. It was destined to happen, and we got away with that $60 like boundary for way longer than most people would have expected. That's just the case. You know, everything else has become way more expensive. Video games were this weird exception where somehow that $60 line was, like, that $60 boundary was, like, developers didn't really want to go there. It was like this sacred line that they didn't want to cross. And now they finally crossed it, first with the $70 games, and now it's going to happen with 80. Maybe GTA is going to indeed be at least 90 or 100 bucks. But like I said, people will repeat whatever they hear on the internet without actually fact-checking, because probably the biggest misconception that I've heard people say is when you do bring up inflation, stuff like, oh, well, if you adjust for inflation, then the price of games hasn't risen all that much. In fact, it has gone down technically for the longest time. But now with the increased price up to 70, 80 bucks, maybe even 100 in the future, that is still cheaper than they would have been if adjusted for inflation. And the main argument I've heard against that is that people will say, well, wages haven't been adjusted for inflation. And it's like, what are you talking about? Of course wages have been adjusted for inflation. When I started my first job out of college, my first real professional job, like as with the stuff I studied for, I was earning 1,200 euros a month. And that wasn't even the minimum wage. That was still like about 100 above the minimum wage. Now the minimum wage in the Netherlands is north of 2,000 euros. Like, again, what are you talking about? Of course wages have been adjusted for inflation. In fact, the last 2 years, the growth of wages has been faster than inflation. In fact, I can show you the graph for it. Like, again, not trying to. Of course, nobody wants to pay more for games. Nobody in their right mind is going to be, yeah, I want to pay more for something. But you do have to look at it objectively. You can't just say these companies are just greedy and wages are not adjusted for inflation, so everything is more expensive. That's just not true. There's a reason why we show prices adjusted for inflation, because, you know, a movie ticket like in the 1920s was like $2. Now it's like 15, 20, something like that. But if you adjust it for inflation, movie tickets in the 1920s or 30s or whatever were actually more expensive than they are now. But you wouldn't know that if you just look at the at one number. Let's just put it that way. Are wages adjusted for inflation? Wage growth versus inflation in the US. Of course, this is US, so don't mind Europe. Here's the graph. What are you talking about? Wages are above inflation growth. They have dipped. They always cross each other, as everything does in economics. So there was a time when inflation grew faster than wages. Then it dipped below it again. And before that, wages were higher than the inflation. So inflation is a big problem. I'm not going to get into the economics too much. But when you see someone on Twitter say, oh, wages are not adjusted for inflation, just show them this graph. Of course, wages are adjusted for inflation. If we didn't, then we would be able to pay for nothing anymore. A movie ticket would be $500 by this point. It's just so, you know, no, like I said, no one wants to pay more for something, but to pretend like there's not a reason why games are getting more expensive, that's just ignoring the numbers and just ignoring the facts, and you're just being angry for the sake of being angry. Are these comments coming through only through European? Well, the European economy is very much intertwined with the US economy. If you guys have just look at the housing crisis of 2008. You guys had a problem with your housing market. It crashed. The housing bubble burst. We were also affected by that. In fact, I was able to buy my house at a low point for $80,000. That is insane if you think about it. That same apartment, I sold it for 190 euros. Just to give you an example of how crazy of an increase that was. So, again, not trying to say that Nintendo is not greedy to some extent. And also that's why I said before, you have to look at each point individually. You cannot just take the whole thing and just say, I hate Nintendo now because XYZ. Because that stupid little thing that they have, like it's like Miiverse, but for the Switch 2, that should be free. There's no reason to charge $10 for that. You know, you don't have to do that. So, you know, but like I said, game prices were always going to increase at some point. We have now finally gotten to that moment, and it sucks, and I wish games would stay $60 forever. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't like it any more than you do, but let's at least stick to the facts and the reality. Welcome to it should be $80. I fully agree. It's way too good of a project. Just give out for free. My hope is that Mario Kart will be one of the very few games that's gonna be $80. I hope that in the entire lifespan of the Switch 2, Mario Kart is gonna be maybe one of 5 games that's gonna go beyond that $80. Because here's another thing you can at least take into consideration, right? Because whenever people say games should be cheaper because the hardware has become more cheap to manufacture, like for example the chips that we put in our hardware that are used to build the hardware, yeah, those used to be more expensive to make back in the N64 days, you know? Now, because of globalization and because we take advantage of global trade, Chinese labor, because of that, we are able to get that kind of stuff for way cheaper. That's true. But games used to be made by 10 to 20 people. They didn't have voice acting, or at least not professional voice acting. Most games barely came out in more than 1 or 2 languages. Breath of the Wild had a 100+ man team working on it. That's 100 salaries that you have to pay. That's not even taking into account all the voice actors, all the people who had to work on localization, because Breath of the Wild came out in like, I don't know, like 15 different languages. Games have changed in the way they are made. Yes, the hardware is a little cheaper, but that doesn't really equalize when you take into account that development teams have like quadrupled, if not more, since that time. Even technically, like AA games still have like 30 people working on them. You know, A Link to the Past had like 15 people. So again, it sucks. I don't want to pay more for games, just like anyone else, but I do at least understand that this was a long time coming, and we have been blessed to enjoy the past 20 years with games that were still under that $60 barrier, because most other things did not stay cheap like that. Most other things became more, like again, the example I gave before, movie tickets. When I was 10 years old, you used to go to the movies for 5 to 10 euros, something like that. Now it's 15 to 20 bucks. You know, there was no point where movie theaters said, we're not gonna go past 10 bucks. That's our sacred line that we will never cross. Yeah, you can always buy the bundle, that's true. Although you shouldn't have to do that. I still think it would have been better if they just priced it at 70. But, you know, that's the new direction Nintendo wants to go in. They want to check. They want to base the price on a game-to-game basis and see how much they invested in it, how much they spent on it, how much time, how much money, how much people, and then base the price off of that. I think it's stupid. Either just go with a baseline price, or, you know, indie games you can always, that's a different story. Indie games you can charge 30, 40 bucks, even less for. But AAA games, even AA, those should just have a certain price point so that you know what to expect. I don't want a new game to be announced and I have to worry about, oh, is it going to be 60 bucks? Is it going to be 70, 80, 90? What's going to happen? But it's not a deal breaker for me. Let's just put it that way. It's not that I'm not going to buy the Switch 2, or not going to buy the Switch 2 because of Mario Kart being 80 bucks, or because the console is slightly more expensive than we expected it to. Which also ties a little bit in my own mindset in that case, is that as a kid, I never got consoles on launch day. Almost never, I believe. I didn't get an SNES until it was already out for like years and years, at least 2. I was still playing NES games when the Super Nintendo was already out for quite a while. I didn't get the GameCube on day one. I think I bought it together with Melee. So I've always been used to not always having to have everything on release day. And I'm not going to buy the Switch on release either. I'm going to wait until after the summer. Because I have to save up some money too, you know? I think there is kind of a privilege that we have built up in our minds that we have to be able to afford everything immediately when it comes out. And in a perfect world, that would be nice, but that's usually not the reality. So And the people who scream the loudest, the people who are constantly complaining and hating on Nintendo because of this, they probably have a backlog of 30, 40 games that they've never played before. You know, if you really... Because, you know, like, oh, games are escapism, I just want to escape reality. Well, then, I don't know. Buy a few Steam games that you've never played before. Buy a few... Do you know how many amazing indie games there are right now that you could play on the Switch? You don't even have to get a Switch 2 for that. There's so many great games out there that you probably never even heard of before. Like if it really was about escapism, yeah, or read a book. But you know what I mean? Like I understand the disappointment of seeing a price point for a certain console and being like, oh man, I can't afford that. I have to save up. Well, join the club. A lot of us have to save up. You don't always have to get everything on release day. Save up some money, get a you know, get a few cool indie games, spend the time with that. I still have a backlog of Steam games that I have to get through. I just started playing The Last of Us Part 2. And I'm probably going to be enjoying that for the next few. And after that, I'm probably going to pick up something else I haven't. Just rob a bank. Yeah, exactly. It's that easy. Just rob a bank. But like, if you say this to certain individuals, they will tell you that you're a shill for Nintendo. You're just trying to defend Nintendo, and it's like, it's so not that. Because I can name at least 10 to 20 different things that I don't like about Nintendo. Just because I'm a Zelda tuber doesn't mean I adore Nintendo, that I worship. I worship nothing. I don't have that kind of brand loyalty, anything. You know, if a company does something I don't like, then I will either not buy it or boycott it or call it out. But I do try to at least keep it realistic. And there's kind of this weird hatred going around where people actively want the Nintendo Switch to fail, the Nintendo Switch 2 to fail, just because they don't like the price point, or just because they don't like the fact that games are getting more expensive. Even though that already started before Nintendo. I mean, the PS5 Pro is like $700. Switch 2 is the Switch 2 could have been $350, but then people would have been complaining that it's not powerful enough. The current hardware for the Switch 2 is powerful enough that it can get them through the next decade. 60 FPS or even 120 FPS, 4K upscaling, that's all we wanted, right? From what I've seen so far, in terms of performance, it's really, really good. Specs are really... Finally, we have a Nintendo console that's up to date. Because even the Switch hardware was already out of date by the time it came out. But yeah, it's priced around the same... Well, and the Steam Deck is kind of a weird story in general. You can't really compare the Steam Deck to the Nintendo Switch or the Switch 2. Because the Steam Deck is a novelty. You cannot even find a Steam Deck in stores. It was a novelty product from the very beginning. A very good one, mind you, but it was never meant to compete with the Nintendo Switch that way. If that was true, there would have been a Steam Deck in every GameStop and every shop everywhere. But that's not how it works. It's kind of like a... actually, that's a bad example. I was going to say it's kind of like a Tesla car. They don't really make a lot of them. But that's... I forgot that times have changed a little bit when it comes to Tesla. But let's not get into world politics right now. I think the chief hater hoping the Switch 2 will fail is secretly a Wii U dressed like Maggie Smith. True. I always try to take a measured response to these kinds of situations. Because if you just jump on the nearest train, be it the hype train or the hate train, you're gonna get disappointed. That's just, at least that's my life's philosophy. You know, I'm not gonna listen to some YouTuber tell me why I should hate Nintendo, or why I should love Nintendo, and why everything they're doing right now is perfect. I want to be able to form my own opinion, so I take every little thing that people are complaining about and I just look at it from, like, every situation. I try to view them as separate things, not as one giant problem. But yeah, let's get the economics out of the way. Oh, it's Rauru. Good transition. Have you discussed the lore of Zelda horses? Not really. No. Maybe in the future. I don't really have much to say about it. Because every Epona is a different Epona, I would assume. Unless Epona is an immortal spirit being. I will agree that Switch Up would have been a nice title, but I guess they just wanted to make sure that people knew it's the successor to the Switch this time. I think they still have ETSS when it comes to the Wii U. Yeah, I think Switch Up would have been a great name for it. Me to start a war, can you please? No worries, there's no war here. I think it's a healthy discussion to have in general. Because if you don't talk about it, you're just gonna have two camps who don't talk to each other, and they fester in the shadows and grow more and more apart. Like, polarization is probably the worst thing ever. Like, as soon as you stop talking about it, then it will fester and people will just get more angry or more defensive. So I think it's a good thing to talk about the Switch too, and the pricing. And there's no war in Bon Sing Se. No, I can disagree with people pretty harshly on a lot of issues, and I wouldn't even have to raise my voice, because I'm just not like that at all. I don't like, I think it's counterproductive to go there. There are very few things that I will absolutely just be like, alright, I don't want to talk to these. Like, that only counts for the most extreme case out there. And let me tell you, it's one of the more healthy ways to live your life. Because if you start just going into one direction, one camp, and you stay there for your whole life, and you just hate the other camp or whatever, like, I had that, but like, I didn't want to be part of Twitter anymore. I didn't want to. Twitter just depresses me, and you know. As a European, I think Twitter is harmful to my, you know, there's just a lot of things that Elon Musk has said about Europe that's just either not true or very divisive, and I just decided one day, you know what, I just don't want to support this platform anymore. I can get my word out there on Blue Sky or something else. And I just made a very balanced, like, argument, like, hey, I just don't want to support this. Screw Elon Musk. I'm gonna head over to Blue Sky. And as I didn't mention anything. I didn't mention American politics. I didn't mention Trump. I didn't mention anything that would have hurt people's feelings too badly. And still there were people who were like, oh, I'm gonna stop watching your videos now. I hope you fail as a creator. Like, how can you be so Like, imagine wanting to see someone fail and completely like dropping that person as a creator just because they don't like your favorite billionaire who probably doesn't give about you or me. No? So I feel the same way about that with Nintendo Switch and with Tears of the Kingdom as well, by the way. That's why I've never made a video where, like, I hate Tears of the Kingdom. I don't like Tears of the Kingdom story, and here's everything that's wrong with it. I wanted to do that at first, but I decided, you know what, I don't want to. Because maybe a year from now I will think differently about it, and then it's going to be set in stone. Then I have to explain why I suddenly do like it. Yeah, no worries. I'm not going to get into world politics or Elon Musk. It was just an example, you know, where you, like, just let people think whatever they want and just talk about it after this. Which leads us to the next discussion: is Age of Imprisonment going to be canon? No, let's not go there. Rauru has Super Saiyan 3 hair. The best. Actually, let's up the timeline for a sec. Oh. Thirsty water. Let's see if the missus is willing to quickly bring me some water. Or else I have to stop the stream again. I'm not that type of guy. I'm not the guy who'll bring me a sandwich, but, you know, in this case it would be very nice and convenient to get some water, because my voice is almost gone at this point. Pretty. We'll see what she says. Maybe she'll just say, no, screw you. Fuck off, I'm not gonna bring you water. Should have thought about that before. Stack up on some extra. Fun fact, Sonia effectively had herself snapped in half by Ganon when he killed her. Yeah, he just breaks her spine. Oh no, Black Links, I mean, like, engage in the discussion. That's all I meant by that. Of course, there are certain things you have to push back on. I'm not gonna deny that. But the moment you stop talking to each other, that's when things only get worse. But yeah, this is. I already showed you guys the scene before, where Ganon spawns some of his monsters inside Gerudo, the Gerudo Desert. So that's here. Ganondorf transforms into the Demon King. Blood Moon rises for the first time, although that's not really relevant for this video, but I will mention it, but I'm not going to get into the Blood Moon, because I still don't exactly know what to think about the Blood Moon, like why it's suddenly... Ganondorf summons the first batch of monsters to attack strategic locations all over Hyrule, including the Gerudo Desert, Hebra, etc. It's the first time that he has this ability to summon monsters from thin air. Zelda and Rauru flee the capital. I still don't know where exactly they teleported to, because she uses the Pura pad, obviously, but I don't know if they teleported directly to the Forgotten Temple, or if they went somewhere else first. Oh, hey, Joe Miller. A big fan of your videos, thank you very much. You think that the quieter playable piece at 46 seconds. Oh, you mean the part where she walks, right? Sorry, I'm horrible at reading comments. Thank you. I got some water. Yes, the answer is yes, Joe. Sorry, I'm just sipping my water real quick. I think that has broader implications. Because we never saw that in Age of Calamity or the previous Hyrule Warriors game, where you're just like walking around in a more cinematic way. It feels very it feels very Last of Us, which is a game I'm currently playing. That's probably why it came to me, but I think it's a good example because there's parts in Last of Us where you don't have the normal controls that you have during normal gameplay. So you can't draw your weapon, you can't run, all you can do is just walk and just steer your character across wherever the game wants to take you, usually while interacting with another character. And that it does remind me of that a lot. So I think, yeah, I think it definitely, just the fact that we see something like that in a Warriors title, I think could have broader implications. So short answer, yes. Long answer, yes. I'd love to see quieter moments, preferably free roam, like in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the King. Yeah, agreed. I wanna talk to the people there. I want to explore the Great Plateau in its ancient form. And I mean, let's be fair, one of the stronger aspects of Age of Calamity was the environment. I think they did a really good job. Like, whether you think it's canon, whatever you think about the story at large, the environments were done very, very well. Like seeing Akala Citadel in its unruined state, in its pristine state, seeing the Temple of Time before it was destroyed, seeing how they dug up the Guardians and where. Like, I didn't even think about the fact that they were digging up all these Guardians, not just under the castle, but also in other places, like the Breach of Demise. That was really cool to see. Which is also why I kind of regard Age of Calamity as like ambiguously canon. I think it's more than fair to take certain elements of that game and just use them to support certain lore theories. As in the Guardian example. Like, yeah, it totally makes sense that they would dig up and find these Guardians everywhere in Hyrule, not just at the castle. So even if you can't use the game's story, like, even though the game's story is kind of free of the burden of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you can still use it for certain things. In fact, I'm still waiting on a free cam mod for that game because I really want to do a video about all the different buildings from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and how they looked before the Calamity. You know, because in the Age of Calamity, you don't really get a very good sense of it because your character is kind of locked in this position and your field of view is limited. So I really want to do a video where I can just take the camera, boundary break style, and just float around Hyrule and just show you all these buildings up close and in detail. And I do believe someone is working on a free cam for Age of Calamity, but it's probably going to be a while before it's done. It's the same guy who did the free cam for Tears of the Kingdom. Not Tears of the Kingdom 2, but you know what I mean. I hope the next Zelda reuses Breath of the Wild and Link the Past map. Oh, and a Link to the Past map. I just hope for something completely new, maybe even something outside of Hyrule. That would be nice. But I mean, we just had Link to the Past map revitalized by Echoes of Wisdom, so there you go. Yeah, Strawbeo. Yeah, you're right. Someone did start that project, but I don't think they finished it, which is understandable because that's a huge undertaking. I don't even think they were taking the models from Age of Calamity. I think they were just making them from scratch. In fact, I even contributed to that project just a tiny bit. I made a few models of the houses that used to be in Castletown, just from looking at the concept art. They were horrible models though, because that was before I really started to learn Blender properly. So it wasn't exactly the most sound geometry, but oh well. I still have the models somewhere, I'm sure. Been a long time. That was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, at least. Check real quick. Still have them. I have so many 3D models. These are all my models I've made, and there's probably a few missing too, like the map of wisdom. There's also some 3D stuff inside After Effects which are not listed here. This is all Blender stuff. Barbarian Helm, Modeling, Map, or Castle Ride. Should be under H, maybe? No, I think I deleted it probably. Like I said, it wasn't that great either way. Maybe it's under Map. Breath of the Wild Map. Structures. Basic Village Blend. Might be this one. Yeah, I think could be this one. If the textures are even still intact. Probably not. I don't even think I textured half of it. Oh yeah, this is like Goponga Village. So I recreated some of the models for that. But I don't think I actually textured them. But this was kind of like what those houses would have... This is before Age of Calamity came out, by the way. So this was just guesswork. Like some of the ruins that we find of those basic villages, like Goponga Village, and those houses kind of look like that. Oh, they do have doors. I was about to say, I don't think they have doors. There's one for Dano Village. Oh yeah, these two. These are not from the game. I modeled these ones myself back then. Never used them for anything, so that was a waste of time. And I think this one is Castle, yeah, Hyrule Castle Town. So that's the church that we see in the cutscenes. This is the fountain, and these are like the houses. Yeah, and I don't think I didn't texture them because they were gonna go into the game anyway. But yeah, these are two versions of a Hylian house that would have been in Castletown. There are some of the market thingies. This is all based on that that artwork. The artwork that we get for it's in Creating a Champion. You see Castletown before it was destroyed, but it's only one screenshot. So don't really have that much to work off. Where are we in the story? Oh, oh no, this is the part where she swallows the stone. Probably the best scene in the whole game. That was amazingly directed. Oh, thank you, David. Currently, the way I see it, this isn't literally the imprisoning war from A Link to the Past. No, probably not. Yeah, it's like poetry, it rhymes. That's a good point. Yeah, it cannot possibly be the same imprisoning war. That doesn't really make sense. Actually, I do have to quickly take a bathroom break. I'm actually this stream has been going on for way longer than I thought I would. I thought I would just stream for maybe an hour as a I guess apology for not being able to upload today. But we can keep it going for just a little bit longer, but I do have to quickly take a break. So I will be back in a few minutes, and then we'll finish up the whole timeline stuff when it comes to the imprisoning war. Or we talk about other Zelda lore stuff. I just like talking to you guys. I like talking about Zelda lore in general. What I live for. Even though I haven't been uploading as much as I would like to, but that's kind of life getting in the way. So yeah, I will be right back. And I'm back. I'm trying to keep my voice on a low level because about to give out. I see the bargainer statues being made. One of the more interesting lore aspects. Here's the kingdom, I would say. I still plan to do a little mini-series about the depths. Hey, it's good blood. I still don't know how to pronounce your first name, your real first name. Or no, I guess it's your last name. It's I feel ashamed. I just call you good blood then. You have a first and last name that flows into each other, like Jason Statham, which is always hard to pronounce for me. Zelda definitely has more than 3 deities. Oh yeah, there's tons of deities. There's just higher deities and lower deities, just like the kami. You have the heavenly kami and then you have the earthly kami, and even those have like, one is not equal to the other. Zelda has always been like that. Like the dragons are deities too. But the 3 goddesses are the most powerful because they literally created the whole universe and everything in it. So they are the equivalent of the heavenly kami. In fact, there's quite a few parallels between the creation story of Zelda and the creation story of Japan. I'm sure there's been plenty of videos who point that out, but what is the video I'm watching right now? Oh, these are just the memories from Tears of the Kingdom. I'm currently working on a video about the Imprisoning War. Yeah, I think I have a thumbnail already. Yeah, even though it's not finished, I'm not 100% satisfied with it yet. I think this is it right now. But I think I can do better, especially with the text. I think it's like from a distance. Obviously it's a YouTube thumbnail, so you always have to look at it like small, because no one is gonna see it like this big. It's something like that. Yeah, I'm basically gonna outline everything we currently know about the Imprisoning War, based on the information in the game and the information inside Masterworks, which I have a document here. Someone who has been kind enough to translate everything from the 3rd chapter. Yeah, I also sometimes forget stuff from the memories. How is Zelda with the new sages? Well, I hope we get to see their faces in Age of Imprisonment, because they were kind of like these faceless beings in Tears of the Kingdom, because they had masks on. We only got to hear their voice, but we didn't really hear their names. Also, one thing that I noticed that's kind of interesting, I think I mentioned that in my script as well, but all the other faction leaders, so the Goron leader, the Rito, Zora, and Gerudo, they're all called chiefs. So that would imply that that's before the Zora established their own monarchy. So the Zora was not a kingdom yet at that point. Which would explain why the biggest tensions were between Hyrule Kingdom, Rauru's kingdom, and Gerudo. Because the Gerudo were the only ones who also had royalty of their own in the form of Ganondorf. So there was these 2 kingdoms with vastly different ideas different leadership. You know, Rauru's kingdom was all about peace and harmony and hippie stuff, and Ganondorf's kingdom was all about strength and military might, and you know, you could only be a someone if you were powerful and strong. And that was they were very opposite kingdoms in that regard. And I'm very curious to see the dynamic between those two kingdoms and how they interacted with each other. Because in Tears of the Kingdom, they don't really fill in that gap very well. Like, well, like I showed in my timeline, it's basically this all the way up until here-ish. Yeah, up until here. This all takes place in reasonably rapid succession. In fact, these two are pretty much back to back. Like, she arrives in the past. He sees that she's in a different Hyrule in the ancient past, still wearing the same outfit. And then the next one, she does have her new outfit on, so she's probably been inside the castle for a little while at least, but still, they do talk about let's go see Minoru here. So by the time that this has to be either on the same day or maybe 1 or 2 days later. And then, as Masterworks describes it, not long after this, you have that Molduga attack. And then almost immediately after that, Ganondorf drops by and he's like, hey, about that well, I don't even think they know that the Molduga attack was orchestrated by Ganondorf. Though the book does say that Rauru probably had his suspicions, but I think they kind of brushed it off as a freak accident. But after this, between Ganondorf's vassalization, if that's even a word, and actually killing Sonia, there's like, it could be like years, well, at least months between this point and this point. Who's excited to find another 300 Koroks? I forgot Koroks were also in Age of Calamity. So they're probably gonna be in Age of Imprisonment too, yeah. God. No. I will refuse. Not for Meadow, I would assume they would have. Or oh yeah, the names of the divine beasts. That's true. I guess those could be the names of the sages, but we don't know for sure. Maybe their names will be similar. Maybe they'll just reuse the names from Ocarina of Time. Maybe it's just straight up, what's his name? Oh god, I'm drawing a blank here. I forgot the names. Well, obviously you have Naburu and Ruto. Obviously Meadow comes from Medley, so that doesn't make sense because so in time. Darunia, that's the one I was drawing a blank on, yeah. So Darunia, it could be that they just, because there are a lot of parallels between Ocarina of Time and this story. Like in the only big difference between Ocarina of Time, like the biggest difference between Ocarina of Time and this story is that in Ocarina of Time there was a big civil war before the Kingdom of Hyrule was established. That's, from what we can tell, that was not the case in Tears of the Kingdom or in ancient Hyrule. Rauru basically just came in, started defeating monsters left and right, built shrines to make sure these monsters wouldn't return. Everyone was like, hey, yeah, this guy rocks, and then he just became King of Hyrule. And the only other faction that objected to that was the Gerudo. Because again, they had their own royalty. So they didn't really recognize Rauru as the legitimate King of Hyrule. And they thought Hyrule Kingdom was kind of weak and illegitimate. So that's probably the big difference there, because we would assume that Ganondorf lost the Civil War. Like, all these different factions were fighting each other, and from what we can tell, it was very bloody. If we are to believe the Shadow Temple's lore and all that stuff. But the Kingdom of Hyrule basically came out as victorious. So in that story, Hyrule itself was a military force. Whereas in Tears of the Kingdom, it was more like not peace through strength, but the opposite. Like just doing good deeds. And then everyone else was like, oh, cool. We want this guy to be the king. Which I do mention in my script. I think we already went through that part of the script too. Because here I do mention, like, according to Masterworks, the power structure right before the war was that Rauru's kingdom, which is mentioned. Yeah. So, while building favorable relationships and achieving harmony, before long the kingdom at the center, which Kingdom of Hyrule, center meaning on the Great Plateau, took responsibility for all of Hyrule as a major nation state. And they also draw the same parallels as I do with Game of Thrones. So if Hyrule was a nation state, that means every other territory was a vassal, including the Gerudo at some point, at least for a little while. Which is what the whole show of fealty was all about, was Ganondorf giving, basically demoting himself to a vassal king. And, you know, that probably didn't really sit well with him, but you know, it was a chance for him to, you know, plan for his big takeover in the shadows. Hyrule and Civil War is definitely going to be the opening for the Zelda movie. I don't know if they're going to go there, but we'll see. Because the Hyrulean Civil War was really brutal, at least from what we know from them. But they might tone it down for the movie. Who knows? Maybe they could depict it in a similar way as they did with Lord of the Rings, where you have the battle with where Sauron's finger gets cut off, but it's like very brief. The beginning of the as an introduction. Maybe they'll do something like that. Who knows? I really don't know what to expect from the Zelda movie, to be honest. I haven't really given it much thought. Because whatever it's gonna be, it's not gonna be canon, so they can go all over the place. Do we have an English version for Masterworks announced yet? No. But I'm willing to bet that it will come out before Age of Imprisonment. Because creating a champion took about a year to localize. I think it was almost exactly a year between the two versions. Maybe even a little less. Because obviously that's going to be a little confusing, because the Japanese version of creating a champion is called Masterworks. Breath of the Wild Masterworks. And now we have Tears of the Kingdom Masterworks, so what is the English edition going to be called? Creating a Sage? I don't know. Oh, I don't know, Strabio. I have no idea if it's going to be non-canon. I would assume so. I don't really see them putting a movie and incorporating it into the Zelda time. Because they're probably going to retell a story that we already know to some extent and give it their own spin. A bit like the Last of Us TV show. You know, the games will always be the canon version, but the TV show is fun for those who enjoy that universe. But I don't think anything that happens in the TV show is going to impact potential games that will come out later down the line. Those will build on the, so maybe like it creates its own separate canon, the movie canon and the video game canon. Ascending a Sage. Yeah, maybe something like that. I think it would be a great idea for, especially if we do get the English edition of Masterworks before Age of Imprisonment, then they kind of have to make it a canon story and take all that into account. It would be perfect. Then you put out the book maybe like 1 or 2 months before Age of Imprisonment, get people hyped for the story. They can read more about all the stuff they didn't learn from Tears of the Kingdom. And then you get a canonical story for Age of Imprisonment, which will actually depict some of the stuff that's described here. Because there's so much interesting stuff here, not just the imprisoning war stuff, but also just in general. Like how some of like how the life of the Zonai was before that, and all these different time periods where like the Zonai tribe came to the surface for the first time, how they started mining the depths, all that kind of stuff. Like there's so much potential here, and a lot of great story here too. So I think it would have been it would be a missed opportunity not to release the book before Age of Imprisonment. Oh yeah, Last of Us Season 2 premieres tonight. Well, that's going to be tomorrow for me. I'm assuming you're talking about the American release date. Demon King and Secret Stone for Dummies. Maybe that's going to be the title of the book. Demon King, Secret Stone. Do you like Zelda's new hair, or do you prefer her longer hair? I like the shorter hair, personally. I think it looks better. Less conventional, less boring. It always had the same, kind of the same hairdo. I just wish we saw more of that. Like, if it were up to me, I would have done like a little prologue showcasing some of the events that took place right after Breath of the Wild ends. That I was honestly expecting that. I was not expecting the story to just be, it just starts inside that cave where they find Ganondorf. I thought we were going to at least get some sort of prologue, maybe voiced by Zelda, where they kind of sum up some of the stuff that happened in the meantime. But nope, it just drops you right into the Ganondorf thing. Cave below the castle. When you think about it, Age of Imprisonment has infinitely more possibilities, since there's more than just 100 years, a 100-year time gap. I really hope they go nuts with it. Also, The Last of Us premieres in 4. Okay. Thank you for that. And yeah, I think it has a lot more potential than Age of Calamity. Age of Calamity was kind of doomed from the start when it comes to storytelling. Not that it's a bad story by any means, but I mean like as a canon story. Something that actually ties into Breath of the Wild. Which I already explained before. Characters. How they would have had to deal with that. I like her A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds. Oh yeah, the one from Smash Brothers. The one they put in Smash Brothers Ultimate. I like that one too. I also like Echoes of Wisdom Zelda. I think that design was cool. Even though it's a bit simplistic, obviously. Like it. Echoes of Wisdom, I think it's very underrated. And I hope people will see that more in the future. I think it was a really fun game. I have my problems with it, especially in terms of difficulty. I think there are too many ways to heal yourself, which kind of takes away the challenge. But just as a fun little adventure, it was more than welcome. I think it was a really fun game. It's just a shame that I cannot really make a lot of content about it because it just doesn't sell right now. I tried it, but my last video barely broke 50k views. There's just not a lot of interest in Echoes of Wisdom lore. I would have either had to do it right away, like right after the game came out, but I took my time with the game, so I kind of missed that boat. Age of Wisdom. Echoes of Wisdom. Echoes of Wisdom is amazing, says. Maybe not as good as the 3 games. Well, not as, I would say not as epic or grand. It doesn't have the grandeur of the 3D games, but that goes for every 2D Zelda game. They're usually a lot more simplest. And it's a good merger between the two formulas, I agree. And Null is a really good villain, as Zaya says. Absolutely agree with that. I think I can speak for everyone in saying Null is better. Null better come back in the next main Zelda game. He is one of the more interesting villains for sure. Just because of his implication, he's very Lovecraftian, the villain. But I don't know if they will bring him back. Obviously, he does still exist in the other timelines, technically. So in the child and adult timeline, Null should still be a thing, still exist. There's always a possibility. That's kind of the one of the few upsides to these split timelines. This whole multiverse thing is that you can bring back villains even if they were killed or defeated in one timeline. The only person they should never bring back is Demise. Demise should stay dead forever. Because if they bring back Demise, it goes against everything that Skyward Sword set up. The whole idea behind Demise is that he dies, like dies. He's not like, he doesn't turn into a spirit that can just take on a different form later on or whatever. He legit dies, but he leaves behind a certain grudge or essence that will forever stain like Zelda, the hero and the princess, and Hyrule as a whole. So if they ever bring back Demise, it just wouldn't make any sense. They even say in the game, like, his remains are decaying inside the Master Sword. So he's gone. He's just, all that's left is this grudge that he left behind. But if you just bring him back as a villain, just the same guy, the same Demise, that just wouldn't make sense, because Demise lives on in all the other Zelda villains in a way, especially in Ganondorf. Yeah, Ganondorf's Blood Moony transformation thing, it does look a lot like Demise, but it's not him, obviously. He's a Demon King, so was Demise. So. It would be cool to see a game before the Hylia era, for sure. Because obviously, Skyward Sword is the oldest story in the Zelda timeline, but there's so much that happened before that. Because there's all kinds of ruins actually, I'm working on a video right now. Might be... Oh, here it is. Another video about the history of the Temple of Time. That's gonna be my my collaboration with Celtic, which I probably have to postpone once again because I'm not gonna be able to upload my video in the same week and also upload this one. But yeah, this one is about the origins of the Temple of Time, which obviously also touches on the ancient Skyward Sword world. Like all those ruins that we see in Skyward Sword on the surface, they've been around for thousands of years before Skyward Sword. So there was a whole civilization down there before the Hero of the Sky even sets foot there. How did you feel about the new inclusion of Null in Echoes of Wisdom? I think it's one of the cooler additions to the Zelda villain library, because it actually explains more about the creation of Hyrule and why there's this, you know, how do you say that? Like this duality between light and dark. Like the goddesses wanted to create things, beings of light, which then get swallowed by darkness again. It's this endless struggle between those two forces. Like I said, it's like matter and and antimatter in a way. But I think it's cool. Actually, I do have to probably end the stream soon because I'm noticing that I can barely form a sentence anymore. I've been talking way too much. Water cannot save me anymore. I wish I was a radio host, those guys that can just talk all day long and their voice just doesn't lose stamina at all. That would be nice. Can't have it all. Hero of Time redeeming. Don't know. Maybe, but like, would I like to see the Hero of Time again? Sure, but I think part of the appeal of his story is that it ends in tragedy. I think it gives weight to him as a hero and what makes him stand out. Like, yeah, he was this great hero who meant so much for everyone, but he also had to sacrifice a lot for that. Paul says, my greatest disappointment with Tears of the Kingdom was that they didn't keep up with their swirly aesthetic. Probably why they went extinct. You mean the Zonai, right? The Zonai swirl? They exercise their vocal cords by doing narration practice. Yeah, but you also have to have like a natural voice for it, which is just anatomy. You know, that's not something you can control. Like, what's his name? The guy who plays Saul Goodman. Bob Odenkirk. He also has a voice like mine. Like very scratchy. Some words just kind of disappear when he speaks. You know, if you see him in any interview or just in the shows, he has a very raspy voice. And it fits the characters that he plays. But for a voiceover, that's not the ideal voice you want to have, because you want each word to be clear. Because obviously there's a lot of non-native speakers listening too, so you kind of have to make sure that you don't speak too fast, or that you at least make sure that your pronunciations are clear and correct. And that just takes a lot out of me, out of my voice. Like the last word, especially words that end in a like Hyrule, for example. Like The first few words are not a problem, but then I reach the word Hyrule and it just disappears. It just becomes one giant voice crack. So it's all coexisting in this primordial land of Hyrule. Do you hear that? Hyrule. So I really have to force my voice to keep up the momentum so that I can still pronounce the word Hyrule normally. Hyrule instead of and that, you know, that's not something you can control, except just only record in the morning when your voice is still fresh. And then as soon as it starts cracking up, as soon as my voice starts disappearing, I just stop. And I just start doing other stuff, like either continue writing a script or doing an animation or capturing footage, you know. That's just kind of my workflow. That's also why some of my videos take longer than others. Like the stuff that Zeltic does, where we get a trailer and he will have a 10-minute video out on the same day. I just can't do that. It's impossible. I wish I could. I really, really did wish I could use AI, trained an AI on my own voice, but I refuse to do that. It wouldn't feel right. The only thing I use AI for is upscaling footage or upscaling images if they're too low quality, but that's all I do. Yeah, Zeltic is even faster than that. It's like 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, he's lightning fast. He's a machine guy. But yeah, I've tried it before in the past and it wasn't very successful. Because I care a little bit too much about the quality of my videos to just rush my way through a voiceover, and by the end I sound like I sound now, where my voice is just barely even present. To be fair, I'm pretty sure upscaling AI isn't even generative anymore. Yeah, I don't think so. Wait, did I get through the whole playlist? Oh wow. How long we've been doing. Well. Yeah, we all have our strengths and weaknesses as YouTubers. Like Zeltic and I sometimes joked about that, where it's like every Zelda YouTuber combined would be the perfect Zelda YouTuber. We had Zeltic's voiceover, my animations, I don't know, someone else's editing skills, the work ethic of Hyrule Gamer, because Hyrule Gamer is also a machine. That guy he is so consistent with his upload schedule. I'm jealous of that, or I envy him for, he just bam every week on the dot he will upload a video. He has it all worked out. I really feel lazy compared to him, even though I am trying my best. But you know what I mean. Like I can barely get a video out in 1 month, and he just has a consistent schedule. But if you just take all the Zelda YouTubers, blend them together, then you will have the perfect Zelda YouTuber. But I think that's also part of the charm, that every Zelda YouTuber has their own style thing that makes them unique. Need more crackpot conspiracy theories like crazy like Tetraforce style conspiracy stuff. Zelda. Aiden said something. I kind of missed the oh, that's where we got. I only saw the part where you said when everyone was speculating. Yeah, I do agree. The Tears of the Kingdom Zelda Theory community was really good. That was a great time to be a Zelda YouTuber. I'm sure that will come back again. Like, I know a lot of people have also been taking breaks. Nintendo Black Crisis kind of took a break for a while. Triforce Trends took a break for a while. Zelda lore hasn't uploaded in a long time. I guess people just kind of move on to other things for a while, because you've been building up that hype for the game for so long, and then it's suddenly there. And what are you gonna do after that? You know, it's both a blessing and a curse. The fact that you have to wait for something for so long, because the wait for Tears of the Kingdom was excruciating. Oh yeah, Game of a Jesse also. You know, I'm sure all of them have their own personal reasons for not uploading as much as they used to. Because I know, for example, Zelda lore has been working on Rayman, a Rain Man fan project thingy, where he does like 3D animations. People might get jobs and focus on something else for a little while. Like, YouTube is very exhausting when it comes to just doing the same thing over and over, you know. Not that I necessarily thought about quitting YouTube or anything, but there have been moments in the past months or so where I was like, I really need to take a break, or else I'm just going to be uploading out of obligation. Which is that when I get to that point, that's when I'm going to lose passion for it, for sure. So I only upload things that I feel like are worthy of making. I don't want to upload or perish. And the new Age of Imprisonment announcement, for me, that has been the perfect spark. Because now I get to be excited about this Zelda universe for a while again. Even if if the gameplay itself ends up being a bit meh, typical Warriors style gameplay, I'm still going to be very excited to see all the cutscenes, to see more of Ganondorf, to see more of Sonia, because Sonia is a really cool character in my opinion. But we barely see her. It was such a shame. Her voice actor is also really good. I loved Sonia's English voice actress. What do you think about making Elden Ring content? Well, I did a little bit, but it's very difficult to... like, Elden Ring already has such an established theory YouTuber base. It's very difficult to break through. It's like starting from scratch again. You know, I've worked for all these years to get up here where I am now when it comes to my position in the Zelda lore community. Yeah, you also need a PhD when it comes to Elden Ring lore. That's true as well. Very, very complicated lore, like super complicated. But besides that, it's also just, like I said, like you're starting from scratch again. And that's very difficult if it's part of your main income. You know, if you're just doing it as a hobby and nothing more, then it's a different story. But YouTube is like 50-50 when it comes to my income, you know? Like, I do animations for people and then YouTube, and that's it. That's how I make my money. If I suddenly start going back to only 10 to 20k views per video, I'm gonna go broke real quick. Especially in this economy. Her voice is pretty. Yeah. She just sounds very wise and very... like, it's just someone you would listen to. So yeah. Which is why I wish we saw more of her. Which we now finally get to do in Age of Imprisonment. I'll take that win. I wish we got a master mode for Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah, I still think it's a bit weird that they never did that. Also, that's one more thing that I will side with the critics when it comes to the Switch 2. I think it's ridiculous that Breath of the Wild without DLC is a $70 game. I think, or is it 60? That doesn't matter. It's without DLC. It's way too expensive for a game that old. See, I can also be critical. Yeah, okay, it is 70. That's what I meant before, is like, just, I look at everything in isolation. So that price is ridiculous. I think it's, like Tears of the Kingdom, okay, it still just came out, relatively speaking. And it's been upgraded. But $70 for Tears of the, for Breath of the Wild? Nah. That's too much. Especially without the DLC. Just throw us a bone once in a while, you know? They already never raise or lower prices in general. Yeah, exactly. They never put their games on sale. So, yikes. Like, I just bought The Last of Us remastered for Steam, on Steam. $50. You think the Zelda Notes is going to bring in any actual new lore? From what I've seen, it doesn't really say much, but you know, there's tons of these notes. And the ones that we did see, I think we only got to see one of them, or two. One of them, actually, we hear the audio, and the other one was only, like, the text. None of which really added anything new. I think in the Temple of Time, like, Zelda says something along the lines of, like, oh, this... The description of the Temple of Time is very different from the ones that the one that we see here, like implying that it's actually like not the original Temple of Time. Referring, of course, to the Zonai Zonai Temple of Time. Like, yeah, we already knew that. That's not really something. But you never know. Maybe there's gonna be some, at least some cool little tidbits of lore in there. I'm not discounting that. Any extra lore is welcome. Okay. Digital being the same as physical. Well, hasn't that been the case for a while though? So I don't really buy physical very often anymore. The only physical games I've bought in the last 2-3 years has been Tears of the Kingdom and again, Age of Wisdom, Echoes of Wisdom. Those are the only physical games I've bought. Like, everything else I've bought digitally. So I'm kind of used to it at this point. Yeah, I do agree that it's a bit of a disturbing trend. This whole idea, like, you don't really own your games anymore. I think that's a disgrace. Which, again, it's kind of like, oh, well, everyone's doing it now, so... Thank God for emulators. I shouldn't say that. But it is true to some extent. Thank God for ROM dumps and emulators. At least get to preserve our own games, even if we have to do it in secret. Like copying a book, renting a book from the library, and then, you know, just scan every page. I don't even know if there's a law against that. I don't think so, unless you sell it, maybe. Paul says, I buy physical copies of everything. I still buy CDs. Hardcore, man. Yeah, no, I don't. But to each their own, yeah. I haven't bought a CD or a DVD for ages. I guess I've never really cared that much about physical media. I'm not a collector. I don't have like a big closet full of DVDs and movies, even though I'm a huge movie buff and I love games, obviously. But I'm not really into that. Fleetwood Mac, yeah. Good stuff. I haven't paid for a college textbook. Man, times have changed. You will never know the pain of carrying a like 50-pound backpack full of books. Actually, I don't know. I haven't been to school in what is it, like God, I'm old. Like 16 years at this point. So I don't even know if people still carry textbooks in school, or if everything's just digital now or on iPads. Or so feel free to interject, to share your experience. Go to sleep, workaholic. How's the video going? It's going good. Still got a long way to go, but I think the video is probably going to be about 25 to 30 minutes long, if I had to guess. Depends on how fast I talk. The ancient hero should not be alive in Age of Imprisonment. He's the hero who fought the calamity. Exactly. Echo Hoodie. If he's gonna be in the game, he has to be just a non-canon character. Again, like in Age of Calamity, when you get to play as Calamity Ganon. You know, that's just a fun thing they put in the game, just for the sake of gameplay, but it's not like canon to the story. If they do that, then I'm totally fine with it. I mean, they already have the model, so I'm sure he's going to be easy to implement. And they can give him basically the same moveset as Age of Calamity Link. But I don't want him in the cutscenes, in the actual main narrative, because that would not make sense unless he's immortal. Unless his race is like an immortal race who doesn't grow old. I wonder how long ago the imprisoning war is in relation to the calamity of 10,000 years ago. That's a very good question, yeah. Could be 20,000 years, 30, 50, 100,000. Who knows with the Zelda timelines? They never really specify that kind of stuff. It's just like, oh, it's eons or ages ago. Which could mean anything. Like, I think between Skyward Sword and Minish Cap, it's already they're already talking about ages and eons later. So who knows? Zelda history is not like human history, where it all gradually like progresses. Like, you can have a million years go by in the Zelda universe and they're still stuck in medieval times. Like, by all accounts, Zelda, like the world of Zelda should be like the most futuristic. Like, they should have colonized Mars by that point. Should be the world of the Expanse. But for some reason, they still use bows, even after tens of thousands of years. I guess with the Divine Beast and the Guardians, it was the first time where we really saw a big step, where it was like unlike anything else. Yeah, you had the robots in Skyward Sword, but they didn't really do all that much. besides mining, hanging around. I don't think the Zonai are actually gods. No, that they were revered as gods, but they are not god beings themselves. From the perspective of the Hylians who lived on the surface, when the Zonai arrived, they were seen as gods because they came from the sky and they were much more advanced and powerful. But they are not gods, at least not according to the book. They were just a group of people who were appointed by Hylia to take care of the secret stones. Zonai and Twilight feel like an attempt at aliens in the series. Yeah, I guess it kind of does. In a way. But the Zonai did originate from Earth. So. And the Twilight were aliens, basically. Or Hyruleans, at least. They were just banished to a different dimension. We had the aliens in Majora's Mask. To be fair with the cycles, it's easy to imagine a tech/humanity reset every so often. Yeah, of course. I mean, if there was a solar storm today, we would all be back in the Stone Age. Like a major solar storm. Like all of our electricity will fry, all of our computers will be wiped. We'll be set back by hundreds of years. But that's kind of what makes Zelda Zelda, you know, it's based on mythologies, as Paul says. It's all mythological. And as we all know, mythologies are often like filled with end of the world stories, like floods and cataclysms, and I think it's a way to keep the, you know, it's basically the only way to have this series keep its identity. Because like I said, technically speaking, when it comes to the amount of time that's passed in the Zelda series from Skyward Sword up until later, they should be exploring space by this point. They should be an interstellar society, but that's not gonna happen, I think. I hope not. I also hate the idea. I don't like the... Let's keep Zelda grounded, fantasy-like. Yeah, it's science fantasy already. There's magic, which in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom was given more of a technological vibe to it, where it was something you could harness and study and all that stuff, but it's still magic, because even the technology is kind of all over the place in terms of what the things you can do with it. Like on the one hand you have like these giant mechs that are walking around, but you also have like artificial intelligence. But then you can also make arrows out of it, which explode. Like it's all over the place. Ancient energy is a everything plot device that you can just use. Just like magic. Like in Lord of the Rings, for example, there's no real clear view of how the magic in Lord of the Rings works, or what the limits are, what's possible, what's not possible. Called soft magic. Yeah, soft magic system. Not gonna lie, Hyrule on a new planet would be pretty cool. Wait, what? Suddenly skipped. Where did the Hyrule in space? I don't think I would like if they made a Zelda game that takes place in modern times. Yeah, same. Then it just becomes a completely different IP. At that point, you might as well just call it something else. I would like to actually go to the real moon eventually in Zelda. Yeah, I guess that could be cool. You mean like not like the Majora's Mask moon? Think we'll ever see rounded-eared races again, like in Ordon? Well, Ganondorf has rounded ears in Tears of the Kingdom, but I get what you mean. I don't know. The whole ear shape thing has always been kind of like a footnote to me. It's like, yeah, well, more like a design thing. Because they had the chance to give all the Hylians rounded ears instead of pointy ears, which I think they did have in mind initially. Because there are designs of Sonia with rounded ears instead of pointy ears. Because then it would have kind of made sense that you have the Hylians who made it with the Zonai who have really long pointy ears, and then you get a race, something in between. Pointy ears, but like more human-like pointy ears. I mean, the whole crossbreeding between Zonai and Hylians doesn't really make sense in general, when you really think about it. How does... Like, why did the only the human elements stay? Why did all the Zonai elements just disappear? Like, by all accounts, like the Hylians should be like half furries, half humans. Bring back Burn. Burn was a really great character, for sure. Also, one of those gray villains where it's not like evil. He's not good. He's not evil. Well, he turns good at the end. Same as with Zant. Zant was also fun as a villain because he starts off very menacing and like pretends to be the big final boss, but then he ends up being kind of pathetic, and all of his power was borrowed. Like, I never really understood that, why people were bothered by the fact that Zant wasn't the big badass guy that he pretended to be. I guess people hoped he would be more menacing. Speaking of the depths, what would be the reasons being in the depths at all in Age of Calamity? Or in Age of Imprisonment, you mean? Well, in Masterworks at least, they do describe that the Zonai technology is kind of, even to the people living in the ancient past where Zelda is, even to them the ancient Zonai technology is ancient. So even they don't really know how it works anymore. And it says that Zelda and Minru together restored functionality to the construct factory. I don't know how they accessed it, but there is like that elevator thing that you take from Dragonhead Island. So maybe that's how they get down to the depths. But yeah, apparently Minru discovered the depths at some point and the construct factory with it. And then she started restoring functionality to it. So the construct factory predates even ancient Hyrule, like way, way longer before that even. Pretty crazy when you start to think about the time scale. Possibly a strange comparison, but the Zonai are really making me think of the recent stuff in One Piece. Ancient King. I haven't seen One Piece, I'm so sorry. I know so very little about One Piece. I know it's good. Everyone's always talking about it. But I'm one of those stubborn people who doesn't watch something until I suddenly just feel like it. I'm always late to the party when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's rare for me to be one of the first. Like, yeah, I watched that before it became big, or that rarely happens. I only recently started watching Arcane, the first season of Arcane. Even though I'm a big fan of animation, despite the fact that everybody's been yelling that it's so good, I didn't watch it until very, very recently. I have water again. Ugh. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it quits, because it's also almost past midnight. But yeah, I hope you guys are excited for my video about the imprisoning war. I hope I haven't shared too much that the whole video has become useless. But it's gonna be a fun edit, and it's gonna have some fun like visuals when it comes to the timeline, how I animate that. And I really liked talking to you guys about lore and all that stuff. Kind of missed that. The last time we really went in depth and started speculating was like before Tears of the Kingdom, like back when we still got the first few trailers and stuff. But now we have something new to talk about, so for a whole year almost. Well, winter. So I guess December. S tier animations, thank you. I'm gonna do my best. Yeah, and thank you for dropping by, Lily. Well, thank you to everyone for dropping by. And again, my apologies that I wasn't able to upload this weekend. I'm gonna do my very best to make sure it's out next week. Because it has been almost, well, I think even more than a month, my last video. So I gotta get back into the saddle. But yeah, thank you all so much. Wel Tristan. Wel Tristan, Henk. And yeah, I will see you soon. Bye-bye!